Is IT all set? Okay. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. We'll just call the meeting to order. If anybody has a cell phone, if they could put it on vibrate or shut it off, be appreciated. Tonight we are meeting regarding the stipulated agreement for the REESG NewCo South Windsor, Connecticut. Michelle, do you have a report on this, or?
No, I don't. You should have received in your packet a copy of the plan that we had discussed, a copy of the proposed stipulated agreement. There's also a graphic of a fencing type that we had discussed that we'd like to see, and also another a detail. So you have all that provided to you tonight. I don't know if the applicant's attorney has anything they want to offer, if there's any questions on anything, but I don't have any planning report on
Okay,
that.
thank you. Everybody should be in receipt of this. We did get a copy with our board package, but that copy didn't have the correct information on it. There was a modification that was done after the board packages went out. So has everybody had a chance to review it? The difference from your board package was it talked about a chain link fence, and that's not what we had decided on. So I didn't want to leave that in there. It's really an ornamental fence that was agreed to, so that's what is referenced in this. Otherwise, I believe it was pretty standard to what
We had reviewed before.
Right. So, Michelle, does this have to be read, or?
Well, you would do it in the form of a motion. If the commission moves forward with you want to do it in the form of the motion, you could have an opportunity to comment on it if the commissioners want to comment on it. That's really what the purpose of tonight's meeting is, to bring it forward and to potentially vote on the wording you have.
Okay. Steve?
So I move we approve the stipulated agreement related to pending litigation for application 21-11P, REESG NewCo South Windsor, LLC. Request for a zone change from General Commercial Zone GC to Sullivan Avenue Mixed Use Development Overlay Zone, SAMUD, of 19 plus or minus acres and a general plan of development for the renovation of 60,740 square feet of commercial space and the development of 125 apartment units on property known as Sullivan Avenue Plaza, located at 959, 1017, and 1079 Sullivan Avenue, General Commercial Zone.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Chairman,
Okay,
I think it may be appropriate to read the actual agreement just to have it on the record. I think it's short enough just so that we're,
Okay.
for the public's benefit. I apologize for not being clear.
So here's the joint stipulation. The plaintiff, REESG NewCo South Windsor LLC, and the defendant, South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission, stipulate and agree to the as follows. Number one, on June 8, 2021, the South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission approved the plaintiff's request for a zone change from the General Commercial Zone to the Sullivan Avenue Mixed Use Development Overlay Zone, SAMUD, of 19 plus or minus acres and general plan of development for the renovation of 60,740 square feet of commercial space and the development of 125 apartment units on property known as Sullivan Avenue Plaza and located at 959, 1017, and 1079 Sullivan Avenue in Windsor, South Windsor, and its reference as the approval. The approval was made subject to 5 conditions. Condition of approval number 3, condition of approval number 5 relates to additional sidewalk construction and provides as follows. The applicant will work with the state of Connecticut to evaluate and establish an additional sidewalk from the Geisler's Plaza entrance on Sullivan Avenue to Ayers Road, including a pedestrian crossing the signalized intersection of Sullivan Avenue and Ayers Road. The applicant will also provide a path/sidewalk to minimize the walking distance from the vicinity of one of the apartment buildings to the Sullivan Avenue Ayers crossing. In the interest of resolving the pending appeal, the parties have agreed that condition number 5 shall be modified as follows. The applicant will install an ornamental fence along the property frontage on Sullivan Avenue as shown on the general plan of development, Sullivan Avenue Plaza Zone Change and General Plan of Development 959, 1017, and 1079 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, GIS numbers 873-00959, 873-01017, and 873-01079, prepared for Mr. Greg R. Nani, Prospect Enterprises, 231 Farmington Avenue, Farmington, Connecticut. Telephone number 860-249-2242. Design Professionals, 21 Jeffrey Drive, P.O. Box 1167, South Windsor. And project number, I'm skipping some phone numbers here. Project number 4256 dated 1/25/23. Revisions 1/1/25/2023. Initial sidewalk concept 2/3/2023. Revised concept as per town engineer 3/11/13/2023. Revised concept as per town engineer 4/8/17/2023. Settlement plan fence options 5/9/25/23. Settlement plan fence revisions sheet GC-GP1 attached here 2 as Exhibit A. 2, SPS Centurion 2 panel Titan 3 rail fence design detail attached here 2 as Exhibit B, and 3 ornamental steel fence photograph attached here 2 as Exhibit C. Number 5, the plaintiff shall withdraw its appeal upon execution of this joint stipulation. The plaintiff is REESG Nuco South Windsor LLC by a signature David F. Sherwood, Moriarty, Bateswold, and Sherwood, 2230 Main Street, P.O. Box 1420, Glastonbury, Connecticut. Jurors number 412152, couple telephone numbers, its attorney.
Okay. And your motion of approval, and there was a second by Commissioner Dexter. Is there any discussion? I do want to make sure that everybody who's voting on this is familiar with this plan that's in front of us regarding the fence that starts roughly at the entrance of the, if you want to call it Geisler's Plaza, and goes all the way down past Ayers Road and hooks to retaining walls after that near the 36-unit building that is in the southern end of the project. Commissioner Dexter.
I have a question, maybe Michelle, because it's been a while. The joint stipulation references 5 approval conditions. We know what number 5 is. Do you have the other 4? You could just remind us what they are.
Oh, I don't have them in there, but they're usually with standard ones, usually regarding filing of the Mylars and things like that. But I would have to go get them to really tell you that.
I'm just wondering if there was a phase-in, anything about the
Hold on, maybe
phase-in.
they can offer me that. Thank you. I apologize. I don't have it. It might be on your plan right there, it looks like. On the plan, the large plan in front of you, is there an approval letter reproduced? I can, no? Okay.
Can't
And
understand you.
they are all on this blueprint right here. Yes. 1 through
Thank you.
Just to summarize, condition number 1 dealt with the distribution of different types of units, both by size and affordability. Number 2 basically specified that the affordable units should be dispersed throughout the development and not all concentrated in one location. Condition number 3, it just mentioned it's for general plan of development, which does not address all the engineering and site design details and requires the applicant to come forward with a site plan. There's a mention of an additional recreational path on the Major Donnelly, requiring a buffer adjacent to Strawberry Fields and a bus shelter to be shown on Sullivan Avenue. Condition number 4 just mentioned that the applicant has to go to WPCA for sewer approval.
So are we to understand that the other 4 conditions are agreed by the applicant?
They have not been under question by the applicant, so I would say yes.
We'll assume it's, okay, thank you.
Glad you brought that up.
Yep. Commissioner Foley?
Wasn't there stipulation as far as before they will receive certificate of occupancy on these apartments, that that plaza would be renovated?
We're not at that stage. So you have a general plan approval, so those now at the time of the special exception site plan, any of those kinds of conditions would come up at that time. So again, you have this coming back to you for a special exception site plan. And it'll have to meet the requirements of the regulations related to those kinds of things. Again, we're just at the zone change general plan stage with this application.
And fencing is part of the zone change?
It was part of the condition 5 that you put on the zone change approval, so that's why it was litigated at the zone change application. With the zone change application.
Okay. Commissioners, any other discussions, questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernst, you're not seated. Commissioner Cavanero?
Aye.
Commissioner Viteri?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
No.
Commissioner Ragnar?
Aye.
Commissioner Dexter?
Aye.
Commissioner LeBlanc? Mr. Chair?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay. Thank you. I believe that concludes our special meeting, and we will start our our public hearing at 7 p.m. So at this time, special meeting is adjourned.
You ready to go live? You're ready to go live, Chairman.
Good evening. I'd like to call the public hearing of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, November 28th, 2023, to order. First item on our agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. If anyone has a cell phone, if they could please turn it to mute or shut it off, we would appreciate it. For our public hearing tonight, we will be using our clock for 3 minutes. If anyone comes up, if you could please sign in either before or after you speak, we would appreciate that. Josh, is the sign-in sheet out there? Okay, thank you. When the 3 minutes is up, there will be a bell or something. If you have more to say, you're welcome to come back up after everybody else has spoken. So if you can, do your best to get your thoughts across in your 3-minute time limit. At this time, I'll turn to our town staff. Michelle, is there any report?
No, there's no new report. You did receive, I don't know if you're going to read your legal notice first
Okay.
before I get into it.
I'll turn to our secretary to read the legal notice.
To be published in the Journal Inquirer Thursday, November 17, 2023, and Thursday, November 24, 2023, South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, November 28, 2023, at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Number one, the Metro Realty Management Corporation request for a special exception to Section 7.22 and site plan of development for a 55-unit apartment complex on property located at 240 Deming Street and a portion of 440 Buckland Road, northerly side of Deming Street and easterly of Buckland Road, MAH zone, continued from October 24, 2023. Copies of the applications are on file in the office of the town clerk and/or planning department and online at https://www.southwindsorct.gov, planning department pages, planning and zoning commission applications. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard, and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Tuesday to Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Friday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Bart Pasiconis, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With this hearing, we have heard a lot of testimony already. If anyone has new testimony that they would like to provide, we would appreciate that. Also, one of the things that's going to be considered is how the maintenance of their proposed lot next door would be. Would it be mowed often, weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly? That's something that we'd like to hear from the public of how they feel it should be maintained. So at this time, I'll open up the floor.
Chairman, you were going to staff and then we went to legal notice. Could I just comment briefly before you open it up?
Oh.
I know the applicant does have presented some information of some changes that they'd like to run through and let the commission know about it. There had been some things they hadn't provided last time that they have since provided, and the commission, probably wants to see what changes they made as a result of that. So I think the applicant probably wants to
Okay.
present that first.
Thank you. We'll call on the applicant. If you could make sure your microphone is on. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, commission members, town staff, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Attorney Tim Hollister from Hinckley, Allen and Snyder in Hartford, representing the applicant. With me tonight are Ben Tripp from Metro Realty, Tom Daly, our professional engineer, SLR Consulting, Mark Vertucci, professional engineer with Fussin O'Neill, Mark Tardif, who is the head of maintenance for Metro Realty, will be here to answer any questions, and Kevin Ziegler from MARC of Manchester, who has been here throughout the hearings, going back several months. What we plan to do tonight, and I appreciate the town planner giving us the heads up to go forward. First, we're going to explain several site plan modifications that were made in response to comments and questions from the October 24th hearing. Then we're going to otherwise respond to comments and questions from that hearing, and then we will, I guess to wrap up, summarize what we believe is the applicant's compliance with the criteria in your regulations for a special permit with site plan approval. So you'll hear now from Mr. Tripp, Mr. Daly, and Mr. Vertucci. Mr. Tardif and Mr. Ziegler here available for questions. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Tripp. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Ben Tripp, for the record, on behalf of the applicant. So before we go into the site plan modifications that were made in response to comments and questions, I first want to talk about maintenance. Maintenance has come up throughout both the zone change and this public hearing for site plan application. It's something that I feel like I have not done a good job at responding to directly. I've been more focused on the merits of this particular application that's in front of you. But as a result of the testimony that we heard at the last hearing, in addition to some of the questions and comments I received from the commission, I think it's important that we take a little bit of time to just go into some detail about our maintenance organization and our maintenance program. And again, we've got Mark Tardif here he's been with our organization for 16 years. He runs the maintenance department and has built many of the systems that we have in place. It goes without saying that our priority with respect to maintenance is the safe, comfortable residences for the individuals who call our communities home. And the way that really the best way to accomplish safety and comfort is through preventative maintenance. What that really means is that, and a unique aspect of our maintenance organization is that it's not a third-party contract fee-for-service organization that's coming in and getting as many work orders done as quickly as possible. This is an affiliate organization that has the same motivations that we do as the owner, which is to identify small problems early before they become large, expensive problems. So again, in the industry, that's called preventative maintenance. The way that we accomplish this is, there's actually a multitude of ways, but primarily, we have maintenance staff who physically enter every single apartment in every single one of our communities a minimum of 3 times per year. They enter in the winter, accompanied by the fire marshal to check smoke detector batteries and replace if necessary. They enter in the spring to replace HVAC filters. They enter again in the fall to replace HVAC filters. Each one of those visits comes with a routine visual inspection to ascertain if there are any unattended to maintenance issues. That could be a damp smell, that could indicate water intrusion, checking underneath kitchen and bathroom sinks to determine if there's a slow leak that may cause an issue down the road. This is something that's critical to our preventive maintenance, and it's something we do at all of our communities. So not only do we do this, but also there's an organization, an agency called Spectrum, which works for CHFA to perform physical inspections of each of the properties that are under the low-income housing tax credit program. They do financial compliance components as well to make sure that the individuals in the apartments are not over the income limits that are set, but they also, on a rotating basis, come to each of our communities and at random enter and inspect 20% of the apartments. They are checking for quality of maintenance, safe living conditions, and they report back to CHFA. And I can say with confidence on public record that we are held in extremely high regard by CHFA for our maintenance and management practices. We've done 20 developments with CHFA. They have to approve us as manager every time, and it's not, this is not a cursory approval. We've been told that we are one of their top managers. So that's really most of the in-unit stuff. I want to talk about HVAC for a second. Another unique component of our maintenance program is that we have a licensed HVAC professional on staff, so we don't third-party out HVAC. Heating and cooling is critical to comfort, of course, but it's also, there are safety-related implications in extreme temperatures, so we don't have to find an emergency third-party service if the heat goes down in the winter. We've got someone who has devised the preventative maintenance schedules to keep these systems running, but also to respond when there's a need. So let's talk about snow removal. Something that we do at every single one of our developments is when there is a snow event and the lot and the roadways need to be plowed, we knock on every single door and we coordinate the relocation of every single vehicle on the property to make sure that parking spaces can be cleared in conjunction with the snowplow service. At our age-restricted properties, including Berry Patch, what that means is that we physically clean the snow off of every single car. Our maintenance staff does. Then we get the keys from the individuals in their units. We move the car so that the lot can be cleared, and then we relocate the vehicle back to the parking space. Some individuals prefer to do that themselves, but I'd say by and large, we're doing that to every single vehicle on the property. For building exteriors, every November, we clear out dryer vents. We also clear out gutters, and we perform a visual routine inspection of the exterior of the building to ensure, again, no small problems that may become big problems later. We also power wash exterior vinyl a minimum of once every 3 years. It's often once every 2 years, and it's really on an as-needed basis. So when there are maintenance requests, specific, whether routine or emergency maintenance requests, we have a work order system. It's a combination of people and technology. So the system is called AppFolio. You can go online and enter in a work order request, or you can call our maintenance headquarters. One of our employees, her name is Savannah. If anybody at any of our communities has ever filed a work order request, they'll know Savannah. They speak to her personally. She enters the work order into the system. If they are routine requests, they're handled at Berry Patch. It's every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have an emergency number for things that cannot wait and occur after hours or on the weekends when our maintenance department is not open. The emergency number responds to these emergency requests immediately. So at the last hearing, and maybe we'll hear from some tonight, at the last hearing, there were no residents from Berry Patch who spoke up. But over the course of the zone change public hearings, there were, I went back through the record, I believe it was 5 individuals out of what we have over 500 residents in various apartments in South Windsor who spoke up with concerns about maintenance. Now, it's not a high ratio, but those individuals, they matter. And we, after hearing from them, reached out to the individuals who had concerns. Mark and I met individually and then as a group with larger members of the communities who had concerns. And, I feel like as a result of this process, we have improved. Look, I'm not saying that every single thing we do is perfect, or we respond to every single issue, in the exact correct way. There's always room for improvement. But I do believe that as a result of this process, we've improved our communication with the residents, and I frankly have received positive feedback from a number of them as we've progressed and continue to communicate. So, we saw pictures of the grounds. I described some of the challenges we faced in the last year with heavy rain, heat, difficulty with mowing that led to conditions where grass was long. I feel like those pictures were attempted to be extrapolated to this overall sense that we're a negligent manager, that we're an absentee landlord, and that is not, it's just not true. There are comments that we don't have to maintain our properties because we have a wait list. That's absurd. The reason we have a wait list is because our communities are perceived as attractive, safe, affordable, comfortable places to live. So when we hear misleading comments or pictures of balconies from communities that are not only not owned and operated by us, but don't even exist in the town of South Windsor, I hope that our body of work in town over the last 20 years is indicative of who we are as an owner and as a manager. So I just want to, like I said, Mark is here, happy to answer any questions, but I really felt it was important to address that. So there were also questions just about affordability of this development, proposed affordability, and how it kind of plays into the bigger picture of affordability targets in town. So I just want to bring us back to what our proposed affordability is here in this development. This is dictated by the 9% tax credit program that we're applying for. This is the optimal allocation of affordability to be the most competitive in this program. It's 20% of the apartments at 30% of area median income or AMI, 40% at 50% of AMI, 20% at 80, 20% at market rate. They require a mixed income component to achieve the most points, and there are different policy reasons why they incentivize different amounts of affordability, different levels of affordability. So what that means with the 55 apartments here is that, so take a step back. Connecticut General Statute 830G. What it says is that when an applicant proposes certain types of affordable housing, a town cannot deny that housing unless there's evidence on the record of a public health and safety, or an adverse effect on public health and safety that outweighs the need for affordable housing. And such adverse effect on health and safety cannot be mitigated by reasonable modifications to the plan. And so how that kind of plays out in practice is, for example, if the fire department says the site is too tight, I can't get the fire truck around, I can't put out a fire at the back building. That's a reasonable public health and safety concern, grounds for denial. And I'll ask Tim to cut me off if I'm speaking out of turn here because he knows this stuff way better than I do. But if a town, if a commission denies and there is not satisfactory evidence on the record, then typically how it plays out is the applicant has the opportunity to appeal that decision, and it's heard by a superior court judge who then makes the decision on whether or not the development should be approved. Now, what we've done, how we've built our affordable housing business, we've been in litigation once, I think, in the last 25 years. Our goal is to work collaboratively with towns to achieve these affordability goals in ways that are in locations and designs that are sensible, so that it really is a joint effort and not not using the sledgehammer, I should say. So, and I think that is why even in the town where we did, we prevailed on the litigation, after the development was up and operating, they invited us back to develop another community there. And in every town that we've ever developed affordable housing, we've been invited back to develop more. So the goals that I was referring to, there's really twofold. There's the 10% goal, which I'll start with because it's a little bit more intuitive. You take your housing stock, and there's a 1-for-1 credit for every deed-restricted affordable home, and you just look at the percentages. If you've got 10% of your total residences as deed restricted or assisted housing, as defined by the statute, then you no longer are subject to that health and safety standard under 830G. The applicant has to follow your typical zoning regulations. The other avenue is the temporary moratorium, which is what the town of South Windsor is under currently and what will expire in October of 2024. So the way you achieve a temporary moratorium is by approving, constructing, and occupying 2% of your housing stock. It's kind of like how to, bite-size progress toward your ultimate 10% goal. But the way that's calculated is different. It's not one for one for every unit. There's a point structure ascribed to the level of affordability. If you're at 30% of AMI for an apartment, a rental apartment, you get 2.5 points. 50% of AMI, 2 points. So for this proposed development, even though it's just 55 apartments, the town would earn 90.75 points, housing equivalent points, and when compared to the most recent census numbers, it gets you to just under 1%, so close to halfway to that 2% to get to the next 4-year moratorium. So there may be questions there. I think I'll leave it at that for now on the affordability side. So we, as discussed, we did make some modifications to the plan. I'm going to let Tom describe them in detail. There's a few that I want to touch on at a high level before we move on. We added the locations for the EV chargers, bike rack. We replaced the gazebo with a recreational area. One thing that I heard from the commission was concern about snow management. So I did meet with Mark and meet with our civil engineer on how we can improve the site layout to make sure that snow management, snow removal was handled optimally. You can see, and hopefully you're looking at this in front of you because it's kind of small up here, but one area, maybe I'll go to the next slide. So we relocated the sidewalks as they come from the development down to Deming, where they were previously hugging the curb line of the entrance drive. They've now opened up the shoulder of those entrance areas where there is no sidewalk, where the snow can be pushed down directly from those drive aisles to that shoulder near the entrance. We also eliminated roughly a little more than half of the central island had a perimeter sidewalk around it that was really not leading anywhere. There's sidewalks that service the remainder of the property as it is. So by removing those sidewalks, again, we provided the availability for almost the entire of that central island to be utilized for snow storage when there's a snow event. You'll see that there's parking spaces flanking that island. As I described earlier, we work with vehicle relocation routinely to ensure that the snow management plan works as expected. And so what we'd anticipate here is that those vehicles will be relocated from those spaces, the snow can be pushed up on the island, and vehicles can be moved back into the spaces. So before I turn it over to, I just want to make sure I hit all of the, there was a question about restrictions placed in the conservation area. I would propose, open to suggestions. A bi-weekly mow schedule is something that we would be agreeable to. Less or more, again, open to discussion on that, but what I would propose is bi-weekly. I submitted a management plan as requested by Commissioner Cavagnero for the remainder of the development, which would include a weekly mow schedule as well as much of the routine maintenance items that I described previously that we're already performing. I met with and spoke with Kevin Zingler, the CEO of Mark Inc. There was a question about generators providing service to each of these supportive units. We talked about it, and he ultimately said, we're not asking for generators. And I understand the comment, I do. I think that Mr. Zingler understands best the needs of the population that he supports. I said we're open to it if it's something that was important to him, and You know, if you have questions for him about that, I'm happy to let him speak to it, but I know they have a generator for their headquarter facility in Manchester that they've used from time to time, and will also have a generator providing power to the office where their supportive staff will be on site. He ultimately determined that it's not something that he was requesting in the development. Sewer. There was some kind of comment or confusion about sewer capacity at the last hearing. So we followed up with Tony Manfrey at the pollution control, and I pulled out some old emails as well. So originally we had requested capacity for 10,350 gallons per day. That was when the proposal was 72 apartments. He confirmed via email that there was capacity for the 10,350. We subsequently, since we revised our unit count down to 55, we're requesting 7,950 gallons per day. There's been subsequent communication, and town planner can confirm that he did concur that there is adequate capacity for the requested sewer flows. So I think that is all that I have right now. So I'm going to ask Tom to come up and quickly walk through some of the other minor site plan modifications that were made in response to some comments, and open for questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening. For the record, Tom Daly with SLR. We are the primary site designer on the application. And we took some really good notes from this commission at the last meeting. In addition to that, we had town engineering comments, and we worked together with Metro Realty to address those comments with the revised plan set. And I'd like to take a moment just to summarize those revisions. First of all, we were in receipt of the town engineer's comments, and we believe we've addressed all those in the revised set. Obviously, the town engineer will work to refine any, if there's any fine adjustments to those, but the town engineer's comments were very straightforward, very clear and concise, so we feel we have addressed those to the greatest extent without having a final conversation with the town engineer as a condition of approval. In addition, one of those comments was that there's a sewer easement that runs along the frontage of the property. The town engineer was requesting that we move the bus shelter to a location where it was farther away from. So if you can see on the plan, the bus shelter used to be in the left side of the driveway. It's been relocated to the right side of the driveway. And we're basically taking advantage of the way the sewer easement kinks in there, and there's greater space on that side of the driveway to give separation to the sanitary sewer. In addition to that, the town engineer asked us to slide the landscaping, and we have a farm fence, like a split rail fence that's going across the frontage, and we were asked to slide that back. And you can see, so essentially the front of the property you can see is a little more open green space. It's to get those type of features out of the easement, or at least 10 feet away from the sewer line. The town engineer also did say that on the far left-hand side of the property, there's some mature trees that are already currently sitting in the sanitary sewer easement. We've added a note to the plan saying that subject to WPCA approval, those trees can remain. So that was a positive on both sides. So essentially, any new vegetation, move it away from the sanitary sewer. Existing vegetation has the ability to stay on that far left-hand corner. As Ben indicated, you can see on the plan, we used to have the sidewalk directly abutting the curb line as you came into the entrance and exit. And what we did was we've kind of disconnected those, so you can come down from the units and head straight out. You don't have to curve along the driveway. You can head straight out and hit the town sidewalk on both sides. And what that allowed us to do is to free up snow storage, so that plow can dump the snow right along the driveway, and in other locations as opposed, so these sidewalks are pushed far back from that front entry. In terms of the center island, Ben indicated, we had a perimeter sidewalk that was in there, and that would potentially have a conflict with snow removal. And actually, after a reflection on it, we kind of said, well, where's that sidewalk really going? As Ben indicated, we have a robust 360-degree sidewalk around the thing. So we really took a different look at the green space in the middle and really greened it up. We took a lot of hardscape out of it, and actually now it's more grass and it's more green space. So it's probably more available for passive recreation. And also we slid the trees more to the central. We had them closer to the edge of pavement. By moving those to the center portion of the green space, we're able to pile snow adjacent to that. But once again, it just created more green space and more snow storage. As Ben indicated, we had a central gazebo in the middle of the property, and you can see on the rendering the red area. That is now going to be an active play area or a tot lot or something that, that has more allows for active play in that location. At the far end of the island are where we located I think one of the commission members was asking that we show the EV charging stations on the plan. So at the far end of the island, we thought that was a great location because it's centrally located and somewhat buffered from the road. So we're looking to have 2 dual EV charging stations there, so a total of 4 parking spaces fit very nicely at that end. Also, part of that is we have the 2 refuse and recycling areas in that corner. We've added additional arborvitaes, so all 3 sides of those refuge areas have now been screened with arborvitaes. So, but at the far end, the most northern end of the island is where the 4 charging stations are going to be. We added 2 bike racks areas. So on the corner of, I guess the mouse, let's see if the mouse works here. We have a bike rack that's located here between buildings D and E. So we have 1 bike rack here, and we have 1 bike. And when I say bike rack, they're a gang of bike racks. It's not a single bike rack. I think there are 4 to 6 bike racks, but they'll be located in those 2 areas. And then on the other side of the island, on the other side of the development, is where the mail kiosk is going to be. And the mail kiosk is going to be located right over here. That's the central location for the mail kiosk. We did add some additional buffer planting, or additional plantings through there. So we added to the plans more detailed plantings on what would go in the center island here. And then we also added more detail on the plantings that would happen on any islands that are not occupied by sidewalk within the parking area. And we tried to pick low maintenance perennials, things that can really die off in the fall and then pop up so they're not impacted by snow removal. As I indicated, we have a farm fence that's located across the front. What we did was we extended that all the way up to the end of the Deming, all the way up to the property corner, and actually have returned it along the property corner all the way to the rear to the property. So we're kind of wrapping around the open space on the front, on the western side, and on the eastern side we have that kind of dense row of plantings. So this will be a 2 to 3 rail classic vinyl farm, kind of equestrian farm fence that would go there. So, and we did put a gate at the entry, so allow, as Ben indicated, if the commission desires, that can be mowed on a regular basis. We have an access gate that's located right off of Deming. And let me just check. And that's generally the summary of the revisions. Generally, I would say there were more refinements and reflections on what this commission suggested and asked in the town engineering comments. Generally, the plan is almost identical to us, but we do believe these small refinements are important. With that, I'd hand it over to Tim. Mark? Yeah, sorry, to Attorney Hollister. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions later on.
Tim Hollister, for the record. First, let me put on the record that I'm going to give the town planner a copy of the communication with the sewer department. So to wrap up our presentation, my task is to cover regulatory compliance, checking the boxes. And this task arises from the fact that 2 months ago, the zone change was approved, and that vote means essentially that the multifamily residential development plan conforms to all of the standards for zone change in the regulations. And now what we move on to is to make sure that the special exception as illustrated in the site plan complies with all of the operational and dimensional standards in 7.22 of the regulations. Another way to say that is the purpose of a special exception and site plan application, as we are addressing tonight, it's really the opportunity of this commission to do two things. Number one is to review the details of the actual proposed use and how it will be carried out and operated. And second, to mitigate or avoid any impacts by requesting either changes to the site plan or imposing conditions. So that when I talk about checking the boxes, that's the list of what we're trying to achieve. So with that, let me address section 8.4 of your regulations, which is the compliance with the special exception criteria. There are a number of these that overlap with matters you already addressed and decided when you granted the zone change 2 months ago. So there are 15 of them, and I'm just going to go through them fairly quickly. Number one is you've already confirmed that the multifamily residential would be consistent with the plan of conservation and development, and also your 2022 affordable housing plan. Number two is, as Mr. Tripp and Mr. Daly have already explained, we have met all of the dimensional and objective requirements of 7.22 of the regulations MAH. Number three, the commission, I believe, has already determined that the land is physically suited to the proposed use, which is illustrated best in the fact that you have fairly gentle grading, and you will recall that when we went through the zone change process with the conceptual site plan, the applicant, over the course of 2 or 3 meetings, reduced and in some cases eliminated a whole slew of retaining walls, which is how you fit the property, the development into the physical contours of the land. Environmental impacts, we have approval from the South Windsor Wetlands Commission, and I don't believe at any time Mr. Folger has expressed any concerns about environmental matters. Traffic hazards, you obviously we went through that in great detail at the zone change. I think in part the commission approved the zone change because it was ultimately satisfied that the plan was not going to create any new or substantial traffic concerns, and I believe your town staff confirmed that in their own reviews. Number 6, infrastructure capacity, sewer, water, utilities, drainage, and sidewalks have all been covered, all provided for on the plan. Number 7, effect on existing uses. The fact is that we're replacing the potential uses of the gateway zone with multifamily residential, and as you've seen many times from the aerials, including the one that's on the screen now, the adjoining uses are multifamily residential, so there is consistency. You'll also remember regarding property values, we put into the record at the zone change a slew of studies that have been done regionally, statewide, and nationally that multifamily residential does not reduce, denigrate, impact nearby residential property values. In fact, a well-maintained multifamily use that would replace what is now essentially an unused religious use would stabilize and improve property values in the neighborhood. Number 9 is character of the neighborhood. Again, we took the gateway zone and essentially avoided some uses that could have been developed under that zone that would have been more disruptive than multifamily residential. And again, the established character of the area is that it is multifamily residential. Criteria 10 and 11 are the examination of the general welfare and balance. I would summarize by saying everyone needs a place to live and the ability to get to services like shopping, and this is a plan that provides both. And again, I think you came to that conclusion during the zone change process. Number 12 is historic preservation. I don't believe that's applicable here. 13 and 14 are the overall physical appearance and aesthetically pleasing design. So on the one hand, the site plan meets all of the dimensional requirements, but more importantly, it's been reviewed by and received a positive recommendation from your Architectural Design Review Committee. And finally, noise. Multifamily residential is generally a quiet use. What you would be properly concerned about is equipment noise, which is, controlled by the on-site manager in terms of landscaping and trash collection. And certainly, as you heard from Mr. Tripp, the applicant is going to impose its own limits, but if you wish to be stricter in those limits in terms of hours of when trash can be collected or frequency of landscaping, I think the applicant is ready and willing to accept your recommendations on that. So, in summary, respectfully, we believe the site plan illustrates compliance with the special permit criteria. We've checked all the boxes in terms of permit criteria in the South Windsor zoning regulations. So that, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is our presentation for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Lipe.
Thank you. I think the only thing that Mr. Tripp neglected to mention was the lighting plan that was submitted, and you did receive a copy of it. It is in compliance with our lighting regulations. There is one light at the entrance that the commission may consider requesting a shield on, but we have a requirement of 0.25 light level at all the property lines, and perimeter property lines do reflect that lighting.
Okay, and I'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of my comments have been addressed. Just a couple of details to be ironed out. We applicant about the concrete sidewalk ramps, drainage behind the retaining wall on the east side and where that's going. And then we still we'll need a LS seal on the final plans.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will open the floor up to the residents. If anyone would like to speak in favor of this application, please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against or have questions or comments? Please step forward. Lady with the mask.
Hey, RSV is going up. My name is Debbie Show.
Excuse me, if you would just tilt your microphone down and.
Okay, better?
Much better, thank you.
I should project. Okay, I'm surprised the fire alarm didn't go off because liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm standing here on behalf of a number of residents of Berry Patch. They are afraid to come and speak because they're afraid of, quote unquote, getting evicted for being problems. I have a list of problems that have occurred with appliances, and I believe Berry Patch is in excess of 20 years old, and most of you understand that appliances don't last forever. However, if an appliance breaks in their unit, and I'm talking about senior tenants, not owners, but tenants, they are required to replace it at their cost. And then if that breaks, they are required to get it repaired at their cost. This is not just one person, it's a number of tenants. I have a friend there who was wiping her windows down with cotton balls soaked in alcohol because of the mold that went around her windows. I want to keep this short. As far as the snow removal, it's like, yeah, in the past they did do that, and it was wonderful. That has ended. Clearing off the cars, which is really nice for senior citizens. That doesn't happen anymore. When maintenance comes, you would assume that it would be clean, taken care of, which it is, but it's left a mess. And the tenants end up having to clean up the mess. It's not left as clean as when they arrived. It goes against everything about having a senior living in an apartment to be treated this way. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at public speaking. I'm trying to think, we've had people who've had, microwaves break and they get dirty ones and they get cleaned and they don't last long, or a washing machine or dryers that come filthy. This is to replace a broken one. They get filthy ones and then they have to clean it. This doesn't make sense. I mean, they have maintenance, yeah, let's do due diligence and give these senior citizens some respect. I just don't know what else to say, but I'm just appalled of what the first gentleman was saying regarding how they maintain their buildings. Yeah, when they had an inspection, yeah, okay, all of a sudden everything got cleaned, so it looks good, but sorry, thanks.
Okay, excuse me?
Yes.
Before you leave, could you just tell us your name?
Oh, my name is Debbie Shoag, and thank God I own a home in South Windsor. I don't live at Berry Patch.
Okay, and you have signed in already?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Lady with her hand up. Thank you. That's enough. Do we have any extra on that side?
Hi, my name is Vicki Margiat. I live at 32 Sealy Drive in South Windsor.
Oh, okay.
I have a list of comments after the last planning and zoning meeting and some other things that I've added based on what I've heard tonight. And I will be taking more than 3 minutes. I'll try, and I will be back. Every time there is a meeting with Metro, we find more reasons why this does not belong. One piece we tried to share previously that I think you finally got at the last meeting with the Stop and Shop and the dumpster pit noise is that this neighborhood has already taken one for the team with the creation of the Gateway Zone and all the construction and traffic, noise and disruption and loss of quality of life we have had because of what this town has done to us. I can't even tell you the number of days I wanted to weed my yard, yes, I do weed, or do other chores and was driven inside due to construction noise. The backup beeps measure more than 50 decibels in my kitchen with my windows shut. Yes, I did buy a noise meter. The dirt mound created for Costco was incessant. I had to leave my house. I could not even be in my own yard during that construction phase, and it lasted forever. Every time you change the rules to the Gateway Zone, you lower the quality of life within the zone, which impacts our property values. The Gateway Zone was supposed to be a place for high-quality development. There were no grocery stores allowed, no drive-throughs, no gas stations, no fast food. Now we have all of these things as well as vape shops. It is clearly not the high-quality development that the Gateway Zone preamble, which says what it is supposed to be, that no longer matches the disaster that has been created. It is a fact that living on a busy street lowers property values. I don't need a realtor for that. With approval of Costco, Deming has become much busier. Another clear-cut property value measure is the frequency of emergency vehicle sirens that can be heard from a property. With traffic increased on Buckland, there are more accidents. There are more needs for fire trucks for false alarms at Evergreen Walk. There are the ambulances for the assisted living facilities. You have already impacted our property values and quality of life with traffic and noise. Please do not add to it for this. I have worked and saved my entire life for my home, and it represents a substantial portion of my assets in retirement, and I'm going to need it. At the last Planning and Zoning meeting, the commissioner requested that we have a realtor state the things in my letter about property values being reduced for an apartment complex in our neighborhood.
I'll ask
be
you to.
back.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this? Gentlemen.
Good evening, I'm Vince Attanisi from 33 Sealy Drive. I would just like to recap a couple of points, two main points. The applicant has stated they met all of the criteria and checked the boxes, and that's exactly what this is. They're checking the boxes based on data and a very nice presentation and pitch to the board for approval. When you look at all the negatives that are associated that have been expressed over time, this proposal really does not move the needle at all for South Windsor. It's still less than 1%. So there's a huge amount of negative impact for what? You're destroying what you have put in place. It doesn't meet the gateway zone. It doesn't meet the spirit and intent for what was supposed to be from the neighbors, which you've heard numerous times. So it really doesn't meet the requirements, but it checked the box. So we hope the commission votes with good judgment, but more importantly, it was said that it meets the requirements and it cannot be denied based on health and safety. I would stand to ask the board, really, does it meet health and safety? There's more negatives, there's more safety impacts, health, quality of life. It's been expressed time and time again. So if this did go to a court, would it really vote? Are there safety and health impacts that the commission can state in good judgment? You have been provided numerous clear, concise, factual data by which you can vote no and stand behind the health and safety aspects. There's two sides to every argument, but you are free to vote. The commission has the fiduciary responsibility to uphold the safety and the health of those neighboring properties and the folks that live there. So even though the applicant says they've met the requirement and there's no grounds for denial, you have been provided that evidence. There's numerous letters, very specific criteria and paragraphs by which you can stand behind should you have to justify your decision. I don't think anybody here would say no, that the folks that have spoken were just complaining. They're not. We have proven that, and we've asked that you actually visit that area, look at the safety, look at the noise, look at the traffic. I still hear the dumpsters in the middle of the night. That was supposed to be changed. Nothing has changed. So we hope you vote in good confidence and deny this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have any questions or concerns?
Paul Pasqualoni, 15 Grandview Terrace. Planning and zoning has 14 requirements for special exception site plan approval. We just heard of the 14 requirements, there are issues, debatable issues, with 10 of the 14. Really, it's 15, so it's 75%. So 3/4 of the town requirements for a special exception site plan approval, okay, you could debate on, okay? Requirement number 2, the applicant has met the requirements of the zoning regulations, okay? Only after okay, dimensional requirements were changed from 9 acres to 4 acres, and only after a zoning change from Gateway to MMA HZ was changed by a 4-3 vote, certainly not a slam dunk, and currently under appeal. Okay, requirement number 3, the land is physically suited to be for the proposed use. Okay, jamming 55 units into less than 4 acres, okay, is certainly less than suitable. Number 5, no traffic or hazards will be created. There will be safety issues, okay? There will be safety issues. I walked down there today and was nearly hit by the mirror on a landscaping truck because of the width of the trailer couldn't cross the center line. And if I hadn't ducked and jumped on the lawn, okay, I would have got hit with the mirror in the head. Okay, so there's going to be safety issues. The walkability, bikeability, joggability is not what has been presented, okay? Number 7, there will be minimal or no adverse effects on the existing neighborhood. That's an unknown. There's nothing that will drive property values down more than adverse conditions in a neighborhood. That's a fact. Surrounding property values will be conserved, okay? Maintained or elevated is what conserved means. The name of the street has value. Okay, Deming, Grandview, Sealy, Cardinal Way bring great value to the town of South Windsor. Curb appeal, the impression people get when they see the neighborhood, has tremendous value. That's how I bought my house, 15 Grandview Terrace. Okay? In the event that adverse conditions are created, okay, anybody selling a house by law has to disclose those issues to potential buyers. They can't be hidden. That's an unknown. There's risk there. The character of the neighborhood will be maintained, okay, in its existing state.
Excuse me.
I'll be back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm on number 9. I've got about 4 to go.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
I'll be back. Thank you.
Is lady with her hand up?
Jill Pasqualoni, 15 Grandview Terrace. Before I even get started, I fell twice this past week on Deming Street. I fell twice because I had to get out of the way of the oncoming traffic, and there's a high curb. Twice this week I fell because the traffic was here and I had to step on the curb because it's so busy right around Jay Samsel's house. And if you've not been up there yet, you don't understand it. Sorry, but I'm going to get hurt. And you all don't understand. Someone's going to get killed. Then you are saying if 5 people are unhappy at Berry Patch, that those five people matter. Then why don't we matter? Why don't you, Ben Tripp, hear us and build this project elsewhere, where there is no opposition? One that's not in our neighborhood or any of our other any of our other affordable houses abutting neighbors? Yes, we've all discussed all the reasons why we don't want this approved, but the main reason is the voice of the 200+ South Windsor residents that don't want the affordable housing abutting our neighborhood. To reiterate, it's not the affordable housing we dislike, it's the right next to our homes we strongly oppose. When we moved here, we never doubted South Windsor. We trusted the town, the realtors, its location, and the zoning for this specific land lot. Maggie bought her dream home and works day in and day out, hands-on, improving and expanding her dream home. If you've seen her out there, she's there almost all year, every day. And Raul, who lives directly across this street from this housing proposal, is active in the military and just built his dream house, knowing what the zoning across the street was designated for: open fields, peace and quiet. The one thing we all have in common, we knew what we wanted, a peaceful neighborhood with open fields, knowing this zoning would not change. I have to ask, how many of you came in here before any of these meetings with your mind already made up? How many of you changed your view when you heard all the people in South Windsor speak up? It should not matter if it affects one person, let alone 200 people. Just recently, I heard from a South Windsor High School teacher who said at the South Windsor High School, all business and language classes have to walk to Wapping because there's not enough room in the South Windsor at the high school. For those of you saying that schools aren't overcrowded, that is not true. Final last words, please hear us. You all up there are the architects of our beautiful town. Please think hard on your vote and vision of South Windsor. Don't change the greatest characteristics of this town.
Thank you. Did you sign in?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition or have questions or concerns they'd like to voice? The gentleman with his hand up in the back.
Hi, my name is Craig Fenn, and I live at 400 Dennett Street. So as you can see, I would be just...
Excuse me for 1 minute. Josh, he's still signing in, so please, thank you.
So as you can see, by living at 400, I would be directly impacted by this proposed addition of apartments in there. My wife and I moved here 23 years ago, specifically because we bought this house specifically because when we moved here, it was a large lot, a nice house, and the only thing across the street from us was land in one house. Now, there was a whole new development put in there. They're all nice houses, so don't really have any problem with that. But this proposal changes, and I do believe from the bottom of my heart, my property value will be going down. My taxes won't be going down, but my property value will. I also am very concerned about safety because the children and the people that visit them will be right in front of my house, basically, and who knows what's going to happen as far as vandalism, cars, property, etc. Very much opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have Jay with the glasses?
Good evening, John Samsel, 333 Deming Street. We heard the gentleman speak concerning the revisions that they've made tonight. One of the things that concerns me is still the inner sidewalk and the center island deletion of the sidewalk. Question being is, when that's made a play yard, is there any buffers to have children stop from playing in the drive or in the parking lot? I think that's a safety feature right there, or a safety hazard that's happening. It's allowing the children to play in that play yard, but I don't see a fence or anything that would demise a barrier between the parking lot and the grass area. It was nice to move the trees back for snow removal, but again, in the wintertime, where are those children going to play, and how's that going to work? With the snow removal, I'm not sure how many dumpsters are on site, but when you look at the dumpsters, if you were to put 3 dumpsters in there, in the back 2 corners, it would look to the north of that property, and maybe a third in between one of those buildings on the east or the west side. It has no room for snow removal. So you mean to tell me that all that snow is going to come up to the front of Deming Street and cause a site problem at this point? I disagree with the removal of the sidewalks in the center. Normally, a child would figure out where he's at when he hits a sidewalk instead of running into the parking lot with cars zooming by in the parking lot, as you see down on Oakland Road. The other question I had, too, was they were going to revisit the tree problem with different types of trees. They proposed cherry trees, apple trees, stuff like that. I didn't hear them speak concerning the trees tonight and what they proposed to replace them with. That front sidewalk, the reconfiguration on Deming Street, it looks to me like from here it dumps out onto Deming Street. Does that flow into that sidewalk that runs along Deming Street? And if so, is there a crosswalk over the entranceway for people to continue walking down Deming Street or up Deming Street? Or do they have to walk out into Deming Street to catch the sidewalk on the other side? I don't see a crosswalk in there unless I'm blind.
Jay, can you come back?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this application?
Maggie Glover, 247 Deming Street. I'm questioning the traffic, the safety. Again, I know health and safety is a big issue here. At one time when we were all meeting over in the senior/teen/community center, Mr. Pasakonis, you mentioned that you wanted to have the traffic study redone or looked at. I don't recall anybody saying anything about that. And right now, like many of my fellow neighbors have said, with Costco being in there, it's a speedway. And once again, I can ask everybody, if you feel like coming over to my house, I'll gladly give you a coffee and a donut, and you can sit there and count cars with me. When Whole Foods opens up this winter, it's going to be even worse. And I, for one, worry about it. I pull in off of Deming Street, and just to also reiterate what Jill has said, I'll be going 2 houses up on the right-hand side to pull into my own driveway, and people who see me slow down and signal can't wait. They go around me. Now, if they're going to be speeding around me, they're going to be possibly coming right up to the other side of that street and facing oncoming traffic, which looks like it's going to be right in the front of that way where people are coming in and out of the property at 240, sorry. So I would hope that you guys will look at traffic again, because I believe nobody's looked at traffic since Costco went in and now that Whole Foods is going in, and everybody uses that road as a cut-through. We all know it. Something needs to be done. Another thing, this young lady over here talked about Berry Patch, and Mr. Tripp said he only saw 5 people complain about the maintenance. I want to disagree with that. I myself have looked through all the recordings, and there are over 10 people who complained about the maintenance. And as she even mentioned, a lot of people don't want to say anything. I personally have gone pretty much door to door in Berry Patch, even unbeknownst to my neighbors. I didn't want anybody to know I was doing this. And people also say, like she said, they don't want their name out there saying they complained because they're worried about being treated worse. They're worried about being picked on later and not getting any services whatsoever. So there are people with refrigerators who need replacement. There are people with stoves who need replacement. And again, yes, this is correct. The seniors should not be treated that way at the Berry Patch. I even spoke to Mr. Tripp one-on-one in the church parking lot this past summer about how bad the maintenance was, and not just the pictures that you saw, but if you want to drive over there again, it's the same thing. He admitted to me that it was done by a third party that was hired, and he had no control over it. So I'm not sure why the story changed today, that they hired the lowest bidder. That was a personal conversation that I had with Mr. Tripp this past summer in the church parking lot. And I'm not sure why people think the church isn't being used. There have been services every Sunday. So I'm not sure where that came from. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Lady in the back row. She did have her hand up before.
Thank you. Good evening. I didn't anticipate speaking, but you got to hear me one more time. I've been on the Hill for 43 years, so you can imagine the changes I've seen. And it began when we first bought the house and moved in, that Dick Kelly had put in an application to build several, over 55 apartments where Grandview Terrace is now. And we fought. Oh boy, did we fight. And we got a lawyer. And we ended up with EDB in our water well, and so we had to back out fighting because we had other issues to take care of. Anyway, he lost, and he finally finished with the land and built Grandview Terrace. We fought for that rating so hard so that nothing else would be built up there, that there wouldn't be an opening. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against this building at all. I think it's badly needed, but not there. And I told you before, drive your cars up there now. You cannot turn the corner on Buckland Road, up Deming. I did it the other day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon with all the traffic coming down the hill. There was a car waiting for me at the bank. There was a car waiting for me at the residence, and there was a car trying to come up from the church. And they were all waiting, and they're not really watching to see what I'm going to do. Now, the following morning, I came down the hill by myself. There was no traffic, nothing. And all of a sudden, just as I got to the church driveway, a car came zooming out and cut me off and went up the hill. It came that close, and we were the only 2 cars. So it's a very, very dangerous spot to build anything. And that's what I'm adding. That's all. You can ring the bell now. I don't have any more to say. But it's not there that it should be built. It's a hazard. Someone's going to get killed.
Okay, excuse me. Could you introduce yourself to the
Oh,
commission?
I'm so sorry. Anna Mae Davis, 9 Ridge Road. I'm the corner of Deming.
Okay.
And we have tandem trucks coming up and down Deming Street all the time.
Okay, and did you sign in?
Yes, I did. I already
Okay,
did.
thank you very
You bet.
much. Okay, the lady in the 3rd row.
Hi, my name is Anita Atanisi, and I live on 33 Sealy Drive. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but based on what a lot of my neighbors have said, it's not that we don't want the property there, it just doesn't make sense. I have two young adult boys, 23 and 20. When 10, 15 years ago, I would not let them ride their bikes on Deming Street to go visit their friends at Cardinal Way because it was dangerous then. And they put in a stop sign to prevent that. And now it's even worse than it was then. And now you're going to add 55 apartments there with potential young children who could cross that street, follow the ball, and all the stuff where it's not a safe place at all. And I take that consideration because it is a safety issue. And if you guys are not listening to that, then I don't know what else to tell you because it is very dangerous. And like all the neighbors have said, especially at sundown and when the sun comes up, you're blinded coming down that hill. And you don't know what's coming out in those parking lots. And it's a very dangerous intersection. And lately we hear more fire engines, more police cops, and ambulance in those areas. So that's telling us there's something going on, and it's not a very safe place. And the neighbors are seeing this, and I feel for the children that are in the neighborhood, because I know my kids, I wouldn't allow them, and that was 10 years ago. And I definitely would not let them go ride their bikes on Deming Street today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Gentleman in the front row.
Good evening. My name is John McCabe. I live at 56 Gilbert Lane. I'd like to just remind all of our commissioners of several things here. Number one, we are discussing installing 55 apartments in a rather small area. 55 apartments will probably equal somewhere in the neighborhood of 150, 165 people. And their cars. Adding those cars to that small area is going to bring in 100, perhaps, cars. In Connecticut, most families have 2 cars per family. If it's a 3-adult family, they'll probably have 3 cars. I don't know where you're going to store them. There is difficult access all the way around. I can't imagine EMT having easy access there, or sanitation. If you've seen the sanitation trucks in South Windsor, navigating that small space will not be an easy thing. And worse would be navigating with a fire truck through that small space. And perhaps more importantly, the most significant number, with all of the boxes that have been checked, the one box that has not been checked is the number of people who have turned up here in opposition to this plan. All of you are supposed to be here representing us, the residents of South Windsor. We are the ones who vote. We are the ones who put you in office. We did not elect you to follow your own agendas and decide what is best for us. I've sat through most of the hearings here, and I've felt that we've been looked down upon and not paid attention to. These are our lives. We are the people who will have to live with an additional burden of so many people living next door to us, with all of the attendant problems that we've all mentioned. There are other sites in South Windsor that could easily accommodate 55 apartments without destroying the habitat in the area. This area, the other day I was out riding my bike, I saw 9 deer down in that area. Once that monstrosity is put in place, that'll never happen again, ever. And we will have to reside in our neighborhoods forever dealing with this. This is not a minor problem. You owe it to us, the people who are your constituents, to represent our wishes. As I looked at the people speaking tonight, there were 0 people who came forward as advocates for this plan. In all of the meetings that we have, that I have attended, I think perhaps I've seen 4 people come forward advocating this.
Yep. I'm gonna.
That puts the
you-
opposition above 95%. You should keep that in mind and respect the wishes of the people of South Windsor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to voice their opposition or have questions or concerns they'd like to share? Hearing and seeing none, I'll go back. I do see a gentleman in the back row.
Good evening. This is Shiju David, 18 French. I wasn't planning on talking, but I think I should. Like my fellow residents of this area have been opposing like time after time. We have started this, I think, in June or July, and it's 5 months, and we are still opposing. So you have to hear us. Like the previous gentleman said, we have put you into this position so that you'll protect our interests and not some corporate interest who would have to look at their profits. That is, and I don't blame them, that's what a corporate should do, try to get profits from their business. That's not what we request you to do. Like, please do stand for us, your residents. We are going to put 55 houses in, like, I think there are around 120 plus houses in that area. We're going to put more than 1/3 of those number of houses in a fraction of the size of that entire area. And like people after people have said, this is going to cause safety, traffic. We all know that. We don't need studies for that. And we have live examples from people who are facing it. So all I'm saying, requesting the commissioners is that please put yourselves in our shoes. Is this what you want for your investment, your property, your life? It's a quality of life issue for us. Is this what you would do for yourselves? And then make a choice. Once again, I request you to consider your residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Lady with her hand up.
Diane Olet, 101 Long Meadow Drive. There's not much more I can say than what everybody else here has said tonight and in previous meetings. But I would implore the board to go ask for an incident report from the South Windsor Police and Fire to quantify the safety risks on Deming and Buckland since Costco opened, right? So go to the police and fire department and ask to quantify the safety risk on Deming and Buckland since Costco opened. As we all know, Whole Foods is just going to make it worse. To state that this is a walkable location is laughable. It is absolutely not safe for residents and especially children. Please consider that when you're voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition or have questions or concerns? Okay, we'll go back to the other speakers who didn't have a chance to finish. Vicki, I believe you were the first.
Thank you for your time. As I was saying at the last meeting, the commissioner asked that we get a realtor to talk about the property value loss with this. I did talk with a realtor, and that realtor agreed with every single thing I had in my letter. Unfortunately, this is affordable housing. The realtor would lose their license if they dared to speak out against it. The same with every appraiser and every other person. No one is allowed by law to speak out against the possible negative impacts of affordable housing. So what we were requested to do by the commission is impossible. We shouldn't have a burden to do an impossible thing. This particular site plan is still too large for the lot. It still does not have the appropriate accommodations for snow. Those snow mounds are now going to be viewed from Deming, where it would clearly not meet the aesthetic requirements of anything, if that's what you're going to see. Curb appeal is an impact, and aesthetic views within the gateway zone and what they're showing are a requirement. This is supposed to be a transition zone, and it is supposed to fit in with the neighborhood. The loudest noises for all of the trucks doing the snow are now going to be as close as possible to the residents who live there. Snow is usually removed in the dark 100 hours. That means that the active duty military guy across the street, the disabled veteran across the street are going to be woken up every day. The guys, we told you before that the people who live in the Cardinal Way area in the back, the thing that they're woken up by at night is the snow removal of the apartments behind them. They're putting all the activity for the snow removal trucks as close as possible to the people who live there. That is noise pollution that impacts your health and safety of the people who live there if they're woken up all night, every night. Unacceptable. Putting the snow at that location on top of the perennial plants that they've planted will kill them. The reason we call the little area in the front of our yard the health strip for a reason. You only put the things that could tolerate the most horrible conditions there, because nothing grows once the chemicals from the snow go there. So planning to put snow on a garden bed is just creating something that will not be ever attractive. The other reason that this does not meet the requirements for any community is that you're required to have a community room. Last week, or the last time we had a meeting, a community room is supposed to be where you can have empty space to use for a party, or your own space is too small so that you can have a gathering space if you live in an apartment. What we're told is the community room really is just an apartment, and out of that community room apartment, it has an office for Metro, a 24-hour location for the support staff. It's got computers and other infrastructure for the supportive population. What about the rest of the 80% that lives in that housing? Where's the required community space for them? It doesn't exist. One other thing about this still being too small is they still have dumpsters next to the jungle gyms. And the rats and the mice from the jungle gym, from the dumpsters, will be a safety hazard for the children. Dumpsters do not belong next to play areas. There are lots of mice in this area. We see lots of mice. I found some mice in the last couple weeks. They're there. It will be nasty. As we have previously told you, there is illegal parking at every Metro property. It's at the Berry Patch. It's at 175 Deming. We showed you pictures of trucks on the grass. We've talked about the fact that at Berry Patch, people are parked illegally all the time. One illegally parked car, and there will not be access for a fire truck. So this is a developer who has a history of not enforcing appropriate parking, and one illegally parked car will create a safety hazard because the trucks will not be able to get through. Past performance is the most important indicator of future performance. This is a safety issue. The gateway zone is still an underlay zone on this property, and the basic principles of attractiveness should still prevail. One of the goals of the town's affordable housing plan was that it be a transition zone to the neighborhood. We showed you before that this apartment complex with this developer would not be a transition zone, and you approved the zone change. Now you need to force it to look like it fits between the residents in Grandview Terrace neighborhood. If it does not fit, it does not belong here by your own regulations. The developer has stated they can't afford the finishes that would make it fit in with the gateway zone or the surrounding neighborhood. They said that last week. We can't afford it. It doesn't belong there. This is just one more indicator it will not be a transition zone, and it does not fit in. I went to Watson Farm to look at the stonework that Commissioner Wagner said he liked. The stone wall is okay. The planting area surrounding it with mulch is filled with weeds and unhealthy shrubs. Once inside Watson Farms, you can still see the evergreen tree on a roof. It's the first thing you see. It's been there since last spring. The 19 tree stumps that I pointed out, because Maggie and I went and saw them, are gone. They've been replaced with grass seed. There are no new tree plantings. This makes the case that after 15 years, the trees that are too large for the space in this application will be problematic, removed, and the space left barren. Please recall, they only addressed the 19 tree stumps, some of which looked like they'd been cut down years ago, when called out by me in the public hearings. I showed you all those pictures. I have many, many more pictures of inadequate outdoor maintenance by Metro Realty on my phone. I am not a liar. I am not making things up, and photos do not lie. You know, so Berry Patch did the same thing. Some of the stumps that were by the shrubs that got too big at the dumpsters, yeah, they cut down the stumps. They didn't do anything for replanting. When Mr. Tripp talked about excuses for the weather for this year, it was too wet to mow, it was too this. The invasive plants that were growing out of the siding of the buildings were not the result of 1 year's growth. You don't get, bittersweet grows fast, but it doesn't grow that fast. They had autumn olive trees growing out of other shrubs and berry patch that were much taller than me. Once again, that's not because it was raining. The other bittersweet that was coming out of every other bush and every other thing, you can weed when it's raining. It's not just heavy equipment. It is not that there was some bad weather this year. It is lack of external maintenance by Metro Realty. I stand by my words. I showed you the pictures. You could go look for yourself. I was appalled by what was said because I spoke the truth. I drove to 175 Deming. The rhododendrons were growing in full sun, looked like you'd expect something that likes shade growing in full sun. The trees looked like they're going to grow too fast, the ones that are going to survive, because they were not planted well. They must have been planted by the lowest bidder because you could still see the root ball in the trees. The garden notes for this particular plan have like the worst possible trees known to man, the Bartlett pears. They also have one of the smog arborvitaes, which is an arborvitae that's cheap, grows fast. It grows to 30 to 40 feet, or 20 to 30 feet tall, and you have to avoid windy conditions for it. This particular hill is known as Windy Hill. That's not an appropriate shrub for this location. Please, 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 before you even dream about approving this application, that planting plan needs to be assessed because this developer will not do a single thing if and when you ever give approval, and their plan is not a good one. So one other area of concern with this developer and the supportive housing is their approach to the carpet replacement at Berry Patch. This shows lack of understanding for the population served. Over 55 housing, 15 years later, the people are now 70 years old. At 25 years, they're 80 years old. To get new carpet, these old people have to move their furniture per Metro's rules. I've had carpet replaced. You can pay for furniture movement as part of getting your carpet replaced. It has taken that long with the old carpet. They probably saved on at least one installation. If it's 15 or 25 years old, they could pay to get it done the real way, pay for some movers. But it makes me wonder what accommodations the supportive housing people are going to need where Metro solution does not work for the population. If old people moving heavy furniture is an acceptable thing for Metro Realty, what's going to be acceptable to Metro for the people that you're trying to build this particular housing to support? They have proven time and time again that they're not a good landlord. Okay, I already talked about the invasives. I guess the thing is just when you look at the quality of landscaping that's in the gateway zone for something like the residents, they're able to weed their garden beds, they're able to maintain. There's nothing that Metro Realty maintains in town that is maintained. When weeds grow, you have to pull them. I mean, it's just a thing. I'm very concerned about the third lot. We asked you last time to force Metro to sell that lot and have a house be built there. They will not maintain it. That lot will become a nuisance. It will become where people take their dogs to poop. It will not be maintained by Metro. They have shown that. It will be an eyesore for the entire neighborhood. And we requested that be the third lot. This commission created 3 lots along Deming so that the development of the gateway zone would be curbed along Buckland Road. Metro Realty and that lot are a nuisance. It is the job of planning and zoning to not create a nuisance. Even Commissioner Wagner, who really, really likes affordable housing, did say and did admit that if that lot became a house, at least the new owners would know what they were moving into before they moved in there. It was one of his comments last meeting. You as a commission understand that this is a negative for the community. I have a question about whether or not the EV electric vehicle charging spaces should count as parking spaces. If they're temporary spaces only and there's 4 of them, should they count as parking spaces because you can't really park there overnight? And is there enough parking in the plan? I don't know that. I did have a correction or something I said before which was misunderstood by the commission. So the location of the wildlife corridor is between the residence and where the church currently is, where all the oak trees are. It's on the left side where you see 6 buildings right now. That is the wildlife corridor that connects the wetlands behind it. Because there's the 10 acres for the village, there's quite a bit of space there that the wildlife can get through to the wetlands that are on the other side of the village at Buckland Court. And the 6 deer that the gentleman just said he saw at that part of Buckland Road, they go through the wetlands. Actually, they go through Maggie's yard and Raoul's yard, and they get to the wetlands that's behind me, and then they go to the wetlands that's behind the Lutheran church and all that area. That's currently used by coyote, by bobcat, by deer, by many other things, and that is an active wildlife crossing. All of those oak trees are going to be destroyed, and that entire wildlife corridor and the connection between those 2 pieces will be lost with this particular application. And you do have a requirement to try to not isolate wetland areas within town. That is something that planning and zoning is supposed to do, is to maintain wildlife corridors and to maintain those connectivities. I requested a light and shadow study at the last meeting, which I believe was within my own purview, and I do not believe that that light and shadow study has been done. If they said that the light and that the lights have been, they meet the approval, we talked last time, the lights at Harbor Chase are awful. Supposedly they somehow meet a town regulation. The lights at the residence are much better. I don't know what kind of lights these are, but the light pollution is a huge deal, and we asked for that lighting study, and I haven't seen it, and I don't know what it looks like, but that is the kind of thing that is horrific. I do want to tell you that the developer is so sure that this is going to be approved that they've already started significant work on the property. You've got to use your own mind. They've been there. Yes. Many, 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 many days there have been people on that property already. They're so sure that you guys are little sheep and are just going to approve it that they've already started work. So I hope that you use your own minds on this. I do have some things that other notes. Let's see. In the meeting that was really, really cold at the community center, Sue Larson had done the unofficial traffic count and counted the cars that she saw on Deming, and this commission said that they were going to look at that. As a former commissioner, she fully understands traffic, and this commission did not do anything with that. Let's see. The new location for the bus stop is a safety issue. It's on a curve, right where you go uphill. It's the exact same safety location that we presented was an issue because even just people pulling out here as you're starting to go up Deming, especially in cold weather and inclement weather, that hill is a little less steep now, but it's so steep that people can't make it up the hill. And now you have that bus stop that's where you've lost all your speed. It's as far away on the property as you could possibly be, and it's on a curve. So it's never a good idea to have any type of stop on a curve. The sightlines with the sun, when you go east, we have had people, before cell phones, people stopped at my house because they ran off the road on Deming and because the sun blinded them and they could not get through. So there are safety concerns at this issue. The present queuing of cars on Buckland Road is a safety issue. It's a traffic issue. I have not heard that that has been resolved. We had the 2 times for the pedestrian crosswalks. I was coming home from church the other day, and there were so many people leaving Costco that the left turn lane coming up the hill on Deming was full, and I couldn't even get to go straight because there were so many cars there. We already have an intersection that's at capacity, and one more thing is the straw that breaks the camel's back. This may not be a horrific amount of traffic, but you're at a tipping point, and anything else is a safety issue. So, clearly Mr. Tripp believes what he says about their maintenance, but every person I have talked to and people who have come up to me from Berry Patch says that their internal maintenance is no better than their external maintenance that is visible to the whole people. If your refrigerator breaks, they don't fix it, they don't replace carpet, they don't do things. I think that he tries to pretend that they have great people, and maybe he believes it, but reality and what many, many people have told you and what you have physically seen from driving around town shows that their external maintenance is horrific, and if their internal maintenance is the same as their external maintenance, it's no good. There are many, many anecdotal things from people in town, and they wouldn't bother to waste their time on a Tuesday night coming out if it wasn't true. They have nothing to gain from coming to tell you their misery. What we want is the lot, is it for it to be a house? And then I guess my last thing is that, please deny this. There are safety concerns to deny this with. There are parts of being in a transition that are supposed to be met by the town that this clearly does not meet. I know there's pressure to meet a quota. That pressure to meet a quota is not an excuse to make a bad decision. You should not let external factors allow you to not look at the facts in front of you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate your tolerance.
Thank you. Paul? What was next after Paul?
I'll be quick. Appreciate the opportunity to come back up. Talking about requirements for a special exemption site plan approval. Requirements, not suggestions. Planning and zoning requirements. Number 10, the general welfare of the community will be served. Welfare to me is happiness and well-being. Over the last 6 months, there have not been a lot of happy people who have come up to this podium and addressed the commission. Number 11, there is a balance between neighborhood acceptance and community need. There's been minimal acceptance, very minimal. I've been all the way back to May, the meeting at Berry Patch. I haven't missed a meeting, so I don't think I've missed anything. There just hasn't been balance between neighborhood acceptance and community needs. There's other great places in this community to put this project. The overall physical appearance of the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Based on Metro's past performance, the standard of that neighborhood, this neighborhood has people who work endlessly on their houses, on their yards. If you drive up Deming right now, you're probably going to see 3 or 4 projects. Home improvement, yard, patios going on right now. So I don't see how Metro is going to keep up with the neighborhood. The overall physical appearance of the proposed development, which to me includes the appearance and the maintenance, is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Lack of upkeep, no one wants to live next to an eyesore. No one. There's nobody on this panel that wants to live next to an eyesore. I certainly don't want to live next to an eyesore. Unattractive, overcrowded, will drive the property values into the ground. That's a fact. The Connecticut Real Estate Commission, their website, that's a fact. Number 14, requirement 14. The architectural design is aesthetically pleasing and blends well into the surrounding neighborhood and surrounding area. Now, based on the drawings and based on Berry Patch, the architectural design to this neighborhood is not aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't blend. Now, you can't make this up. These are requirements. These are your requirements. In summary, there's no one opposed to affordable housing. I've spent my career recruiting in affordable housing. No one's been in more affordable housing apartments than I've been over the past 50 years. I understand it. I get it. And there's nobody opposed. It's the location that is the issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe Jay Samsel was next.
John Samsel, 333 Deming Street. Thanks for letting me come back up.
My apologies.
So, getting back to I didn't finish up with the snow. I actually missed something. So, with the snow, if this were to go to approval, my recommendation is to delete the building to the north, the far back building, and that's where you can stack all your snow and have your play yard, have the deer run, and I think everybody would be happy at that point, interior to the complex. The other question I have too is, well, getting back to snow, one more thing is with the weather that we've had, it was mentioned from one of the gentlemen earlier that it was a hard summer and season, but that doesn't put you out of taking care of the property. As you know, I run a property management company and a landscape company. I've been through different types of weather. I've seen 3-4 feet of snow in one clip. Never once did I skip a beat. We still mowed, we still plowed, we still moved snow, we still trimmed shrubs, we still replaced trees and shrubs in any type of weather. Weather does not hold a landscape company back, just to let you know. That's a very poor excuse for not mowing the lawn. I believe someone recently just mentioned the queuing of the traffic at Buckland and Deming. I did not hear anything come back with any new traffic studies. I myself and a neighbor across the street have done traffic studies, very easily done. You sit in a lawn chair on the front lawn. I've not seen any one of you guys from the commission sit on my front lawn or at the stop sign or at the bend for a Saturday or Sunday to see the traffic that rolls through there. We have trailer trucks. Yes, we have landscaping trucks because there's a lot of expensive homes up in there. And someone had spoken concerning almost getting hit. Well, that's a very good possibility coming down around that bend, especially when you're coming up in the morning too with the sun. So it's just something to look at, and I hope that each and every one of you have sat up there or sat somewhere there to take a look at that scenery and what's going on. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maggie?
There's one more thing I wanted to mention, and the fact that a lot of people have said we feel like the Planning and Zoning Commission is not listening to us. And it was pretty obvious 2 weeks ago when we had the election that the top 6 people who won the most votes, including the mayor, were a certain party. I won't mention it, you all know. And they actually wrote on their Facebook page that they were the party that did not approve this. So I think you saw the people of South Windsor vote for the people we feel who are listening to us. Just something you might want to think about, because it does come back to you when we feel we are not being listened to. People vote. And that's just the way it's going to be going forward, I hope. But I hope you guys will listen and take that as a word of advice to listen to your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to skip back. Vince, did you complete your, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Was there anyone else who had concerns, thoughts that they wanted to share?
So Mike Willett, 101 Long Meadow Drive. My question for the commission, why the rush on this? We've heard how many people come up here and talk about traffic and safety concerns. Why can't we do a formal traffic and safety study for that intersection, measuring and monitoring the number of cars that are using Deming as a pass-through to get to Costco and soon to be Whole Foods? Any traffic study that may exist right now, most likely will have been done well before Costco is here. And that certainly is not going, even if we do a study right now, it's not going to account for the added burden and safety impact of Whole Foods. Can we please hit the pause button and have a formal traffic study done before the vote is finalized? That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any concerns, questions, comments they'd like to make? Gentleman in the front row.
I too would be in favor of having some unbiased studies. The traffic study that we were presented with was provided by the representative of the real estate builder. Why not hire independent engineers to study the problem? In addition, there should be other sites that are identified within this town. There are sites in this town with vacant real estate sitting on those properties that could easily be developed without disturbing habitat, without creating crowding problems. Geisler Supermarket is sitting on a large lot where half the, or probably more of the lot, is unoccupied. That would be an outstanding place to build housing. There are, in fact, the number of buildings that seem to be vacant there is increasing over time. Why take 200 or 55 apartments with up to 200 people living in those apartments and place them in a small area on a small street that cannot be expanded? Deming Street is a very narrow road. There is no possibility of expansion. Why not consider alternate sites? I think we're rushing into this. We're doing this mostly for the benefit of Metro Realty rather than for the benefit of the residents of South Windsor. And I would appeal to you to give that some sort of consideration and to look at data that is provided by unbiased sources. I'm a physician. I go to scientific meetings all the time. When scientific data is presented at a medical conference, the speaker always has to declare whether or not they have any interest in the research that they are reporting. We are being provided with research by Metro Realty. That's really not unbiased reporting, and I would certainly urge us to consider that going down the road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just real quick, we live at the top of Deming, Jill Pasqualoni, again, 15 Deming Street, or 15 Grandview. We live at the top of Deming, and when it snows out, we look right out our window, and the cars that skid and can't make it up, like one every great while, years back, my kids and I are like, oh my gosh, is it gonna make it? I can't imagine now with the traffic coming up Deming and not having the momentum, or cars now going backwards with cars behind it. It is an issue. We see it all the time when there was much fewer traffic. It is such an issue. It's unimaginable, and I can't imagine how it would be with so much more traffic before the salt trucks are out, especially in the mornings and the night. And again, sunset and sunrise on Deming, it is so hazardous. A neighbor actually, the daughter, ran into our tree. She couldn't see, and she ran into our tree on our property because it was like probably like, I don't know, dusk or something, or sunset. She could not see where she was going and hit our tree. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you.
Anita Atenisi, 33 Sealy. Just back to what the neighbors are saying with the snow removal. I don't see how, if they have X amount of parking spot with 100 people living there with everybody with a parking spot, where are they going to move these cars when they do the snow removal? They can't park them on Deming, so they're going to go to our neighboring streets. And who's going to do that? And people crossing back and forth. So that's a risk, a health safety issue there as well. And when these people have visitors visiting, where are they going to park? If they don't, guest parking there, are they going to be parking on Deming Street, on top of the curbs, on the sidewalk? It's not a wide street, and they're going to be parking in the neighborhoods, and they're crossing Deming Street with traffic being not safe there. These are other things to consider. So when you guys are looking at all this, there is safety reasons why to vote this no. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken who would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Bernstein.
A few brief thoughts after 3 public hearings, right, found this? So a number of people have referenced Section 8.4 of our regulations, which speaks to the provisions and the criteria required for a special exception. I bring this up because as a commissioner, this is the kind of thing that's especially important to me. And tonight, we've heard from both sides of the aisle, so to speak, about these 15 provisions. As I look at them, I have a lot of questions, particularly as it relates to traffic, property values, character of the neighborhood, general welfare, overall physical appearance. I just have remaining questions about those things. And the one that stands out to me is the balance between neighborhood acceptance and community needs. So what are the community needs? They are the need for affordable housing. And we know from 830G that we are required to have affordable housing, have a plan, and have goals. And if we don't hit those goals, we risk at some point having the state tell us what we have to do, and this commission might lose the opportunity to have a say in that. But the other side of that is neighborhood acceptance. So I think over 3 public hearings, I've probably seen 5, I believe it's either 5 or 6 people that stepped up for the application and dozens and dozens and dozens against. I see that as problematic. Thank you.
Please maintain order. Commissioner Cavagnero?
Thank you. Just one quick comment referring to a comment that was made earlier tonight about work being started already on the property. I'm not sure if anyone from Metro Realty can just come up, clarify that. Anyone from town staff could clarify that. Could be someone from the church. I'm not entirely sure. Just heard it. Want to confirm it.
And Ben Tripp on behalf of the applicant. So the work it's a part of an environmental survey. So we, with the property owner's permission, as part of due diligence, you do a phase 1 report. The property has historical agricultural uses, so the prudent step is to do a phase 2, which is to take, it's a limited phase 2, you take hand soil samplings of the site in various areas. The other thing that has been performed on the site, there's a, we hired an archaeologist to look for artifacts, which is another thing that is commonly done as part of due diligence, also as part of, looking ahead to potential financing with Connecticut Housing Finance Authority to determine if it was a site of historical significance, if certain artifacts are revealed, so they test squares every 10 feet. So there's nothing significantly invasive. The other thing that was done was in conjunction with the environmental testing was some geotechnical analysis. So all just standard components of due diligence as we're contemplating the purchase of the property.
All right, thank you. Those complete my questions. I'll save everything else for new business.
Okay, Commissioner Viteri?
Yeah, Mr. Tripp, it was brought up about the tot lot and how that's going to be provided for the safety of the kids and everything. Is there, fencing or special consideration for that?
We'd be certainly willing to agree to a condition of approval that required a fence around that recreational component. Right now, it's envisioned these pieces of equipment are substantial, probably between $10,000 and $20,000. So they're large pieces of playground equipment. And so if for the we don't often put fences around them, but if you thought that there was we're in a parking lot where I do not envision high speeds of travel around that curve, but it's something that if it was important to the commission that we would agree to.
And then I would guess there would also be crosswalks to come from the units for the children to get to that center area?
There are sidewalks that lead out from some of these islands that get you to the, it's kind of small for me to see. But yeah, yes, we don't, again, we don't often stripe crosswalks within the parking area itself, but we can do that.
Oh, okay, all right, because I couldn't tell for sure in the picture, it just.
No, if that's,
okay. Michelle?
Yes, yeah, there is one along Deming, the entrance drive.
Oh, okay, from there, okay, thank you. Michelle, quick question, it was brought up that realtors cannot speak against affordable housing. I thought
I've never heard that before, so I can't really comment on that.
Okay, because I thought with the moratorium and everything that was not a true statement.
I have never heard that before, so.
Commissioner, I can speak to that if you'd like.
Sure.
Tim Hollister, for the record, I was mystified by that comment also. The rule is that someone who's doing a value appraisal, an appraiser, cannot make the assumption that property will be valued lower because it contains people who are income restricted or otherwise affordable. In other words, you can't just take the incomes of the people who live in the development and then assign a lower value just on that characteristic alone. But the lady said, we can't get an appraiser or a realtor to give an opinion of value. That is completely untrue. An appraiser or a realtor can evaluate the physical characteristics that would be proposed or changed or in the neighborhood. I've seen that happen dozens of times in my career. So what you can't do is you can't make a value assumption based solely on the fact of the incomes of the people who live in the development.
But the realtors still could?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Foley.
Well, I echo Commissioner Burstein's comments, and I would also like to say that I echo Paul Pasqualoni's as he broke this down. I agree wholeheartedly on his comments. John Samsel, I have spent time on Deming, and I've spent time sitting on Grandview. I sat at the other intersections. I watched people blowing through the stop sign. I've been there. I took the time, and I hear you.
Thank you. All set. Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. So, Mr. Tripp? Would you explain your policy for repairing appliances, replacing appliances when they get old, and also if you have a general policy about the age of appliances when they just automatically get replaced?
Yes, sure. I'd like to invite our head of maintenance, Mark Tardif, up to answer that question.
Okay. Ben, sometimes your voice is trailing off.
Okay, so I'm inviting Mark Tardif, our head of maintenance, to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mark Tardif. Can you repeat the question?
Would you explain your policy for appliance maintenance, repair, replacement of aging appliances? That's my
Sure.
question.
So an apartment, an appliance will be repaired when someone calls in saying that's not working.
Could you hold your microphone a little higher?
Yeah, of course. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So when someone calls in a work order about a malfunctioning appliance, we dispatch somebody to take a look at it. Typically, they have the parts. Not all the time, but most of the time they have the parts. If it's found that the part has been discontinued or the part costs more than the appliance, we will replace the appliance.
So how do you explain the reports we're getting that people are not getting their refrigerators replaced or repaired and other comments like that?
Without any specifics, I can't really comment to it. It's, I can assure you that with 99% certainty, at this point, every refrigerator is working.
Okay. What's the policy for carpet replacement?
If it's a health or safety issue, we do replace it.
And what about requiring people who are older to move furniture? I happen to be in that 70 to 80 category, but I could still move furniture, but I know a lot of my peers would have difficulty with that.
Yeah, so our policy is to have the residents move the furniture because we feel we have to set some boundaries. And as a landlord, it's not really our responsibility to pack and move someone's belongings.
So do you provide a reference for them that would allow them to move, that would move the furniture for them? I mean, there are people that are in these places that are handicapped. My wife couldn't even begin to move this furniture right now.
Yeah, so let me reiterate. If it is a health and safety issue, we will correct it. But if somebody just wants their carpet replaced, we don't move their furniture. If it's a health and safety issue, we will resolve the issue.
Okay, but somehow or other, decisions been made to replace the carpet, but you're not doing it.
I'm sorry?
Somehow or other, a decision has been made to replace the carpet. That's why people bring this up. Maybe it is a health and safety issue.
Again,
people
without
still have to move their own furniture.
Without any specifics, every instance is different.
I do think that people having to move furniture at, say, 80 years old is pretty specific.
Okay. we have to carry a policy. We can't just do it for one and not do it for another person. So if somebody's, like I said, we gotta, I understand that you guys don't think it's proper because of their age, but we do have to, otherwise it rolls over into something else, right?
Okay, but Steve, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you mind? We're talking about affordable housing here.
Yes.
And people having the means or not having the means to do something, but yet it's a requirement of the management. That's a big conflict to me.
If somebody wants their carpet replaced,
Ben, come up here, please.
If flooring needs to be replaced.
Excuse me.
Yes, Ben Tripp on behalf of the applicant. So Mark is explaining how historically we've approached these situations where if someone just wants their carpet replaced, we have to make a determination if it's a request because of there's significant wear and tear on the carpet, and if there is, and the resident has the ability or has family to be able to relocate furniture on their behalf, that's how we've handled it in the past. If there's a health and safety issue or an ambulatory issue or a situation where someone physically cannot move the furniture, then that's when we say a health and safety issue. Someone's in a wheelchair and they can't move the furniture and they can't get around their apartment because the apartment is, in such disrepair. I'll also clarify that there is no carpet in these developments that are 25 years old. The oldest unit in the development is 15 to 17 years old. So we are experiencing some issues. There's more wear and tear with individuals who have walkers who help them move around, and we're kind of just approaching a time when this is becoming a more relevant topic. We would be willing as a part of the maintenance program to agree to, there needs to be parameters around when we actually do get involved with relocating a tenant's furniture at their request. But this is not something where, it's certainly not in our best interest to allow individuals to reside in homes where there's a real issue with anything in their apartment. So, if you want us to say that we will replace everyone's carpet at year 15 and we'll move their furniture for them, it's a different conversation for the application that's in front of us right now because it's not an age-restricted development. We are open to ideas about what's the best way for us to continue to maintain the properties that we do have.
All right, thank you for that. Unfortunately, that isn't really a zoning issue, but I'm glad to have your comments on the record because I think this is really important. It's not a zoning issue, it is a humanity issue, okay?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about parking. You have the required number of EV charging spaces on the plan, but you don't have the required number of EV-ready spaces. You're supposed to have 10% total, and they're not there. You have, 79 parking spaces? You should have 8 total EV spaces.
So we'll show that on or we're willing to agree to a condition that has these EV-ready spaces to be a location to be approved by town staff.
Okay. The second thing is that EV spaces, when they are restricted, formally restricted, do reduce the amount of parking available to other people. So my recommendation is do not restrict them. You put a sign up, say this is for EV charging, but if somebody can't find a space to park, you don't want to punish them or in any way prevent them from parking in that EV space. It's an issue in a lot of places, not just here. So I would recommend you do not restrict. Obviously it's an EV charging space. People will respect each other. But if that space is the only space available, someone should be able to park there.
And we have EV charging spaces on other developments where we have leasing staff and we have ability to communicate with residents via email to ensure that those individuals who need to charge are able to. But I will also point out that this development is proposed to have 15 apartments, supportive housing. It's based on the number of one-bedroom versus two-bedroom of the supportive housing, we're projecting probably 18 or 19 individuals who will not have vehicles. So we are adhering to the zoning requirement of 1.5 spaces per apartment. We're kind of inherently or organically overparked here as a result of the program that we're pursuing.
Okay. All right, well, I'll leave it for you to consider that.
Okay.
I do not like the location of the play area. You're talking about toddlers running out of their apartment, crossing the crossing the area where cars are moving. And it's a parking lot. People get hurt in parking lots. So I have a picture in my head of a little kid coming out of one of these apartments and running over to the playground. And maybe the mother is distracted or taking care of another kid or just not fast enough. I think that creates a hazard. I'd like you to find another location.
So I would recommend the northeast corner of the site is a level area that could also accommodate that.
I feel much better about that. At least they can walk around on the sidewalk and get there.
So I can have, if you'd like, I can have Tom. I've discussed it with Tom, who's our civil engineer. He's addressed that is an acceptable area from a grading standpoint to be able to accommodate that piece of equipment.
Thank you for providing the lighting levels. So that lighting plan was provided. The one remaining issue is whether the lights, because of elevation differences, shine into, people can look up at the lights depending on where they're located. It's a little hard for me to tell whether that's going to be an issue, but I think we should allow the planning department to review whether there are any lights where shielding is needed. I think the people who are up the hill won't have that problem, but maybe across the street or what have you. So work with the planning department and the town engineer to determine if there's any lights that need to have a shield, prevent the light from going out horizontally. And it's not the level of lighting in that case, it's that there is a light bulb out there that you're looking at, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've ridden my bike on Deming Street. I've driven on it a lot. I'm familiar with the existing traffic there, and sometimes it's not satisfactory. I see that Representative Delnicki is sitting in the audience here, and I thank the legislature for providing to towns the ability to enforce speed limits with cameras. So I think I will have a lot more to say about this at our next meeting, which we'll be talking about the plan of conservation development, but I think we have speeding issues both on collector streets like Deming. We also have it in residential streets. People on Laurel, I think, came in, had many problems with people taking shortcuts through their neighborhood and speeding. I think it's an issue throughout the town, and I would hope that the town council would take advantage of the ability that we have. West Hartford's already taking advantage of it to enforce speeding a little more aggressively, perhaps to review the speed limits on some of these streets as well. And that's not something you can deal with, but I just want to mention that. So I was going to comment on having the dumpsters that close to the play area, but if you move the play area, that's not an issue. I just mentioned, somebody commented on Geisler's and all the land there. Just before this meeting, we had a special meeting where we approved the, what's the right term?
Stipulated
the
agreement.
Stipulated agreement with the developers, and that there will be significant, assuming they go forward with their project, significant housing and affordable housing in that. Neither one of these two projects would meet our requirements, so we're still going to be subject to the state coming in and allowing builders to build apartments, affordable housing in areas where maybe we don't want it. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Dexter.
I just have two comments. Mr. Tripp, I know you just mentioned that the supportive housing represents 15 units, and you did a nice little chart where you told us what percent of the whole was at the 30%, 50%. Where does supportive fall?
Supportive is the majority is under the 30% of AMI, and they're individuals and single units.
Okay,
The apartments that would be two-bedroom that would include supportive would likely be at the 50% of AMI, because when you combine the roommates, either whether it is their, the part-time income or their benefits that they receive, it puts them above that 30% AMI threshold.
So at the 20 and 40% of the 30 and 50% AMI, you've got 33 units, give or take my math, and you're saying about half of them are going to be one or the other supportive.
Yes, that's correct.
It's close,
Yeah,
right?
close.
Okay, that was my first question. And Michelle, what would it take to do another traffic study? One that we could have on record as being requested by not the applicant, just
Or if that was something that the commission desired, it really should have been done at the zone change time. Again, when the traffic study came in, that was prepared by a professional engineer, it was reviewed by our police department, our engineering department. There were no concerns raised. Had there been concerns raised and we had questions with the traffic as presented, we would have recommended potentially hiring traffic, at least some review of it. Again, at the zone change time, we went through the traffic at quite a bit of detail, and the zone change was approved.
Okay.
If there's specific traffic questions, I believe the traffic engineer is here tonight. Maybe the commission would like to questions they may still have.
I have a very simple question. We talk about timing of all this development in and around the Gateway Zone. Costco, now Whole Foods, we've got that new, development with Chipotle, and I mean, these aren't tons and tons and tons of cars, but it adds up. What was the stake in the ground where this traffic study was done? What was the month and year? Because this stuff goes on for months, right? I can't keep track.
Yeah. Good evening again. I'm Mark Fertucci, Senior Transportation Engineer at Fuss & O'Neill. We're at 146 Hartford Road in Manchester. The traffic counts were conducted in June, early June of this year, Friday, June 2nd, and Saturday, June 3rd. And they were done during the morning peak hour of traffic, the afternoon peak hour of traffic, and the Saturday midday retail peak hour of traffic. So anything that was built up until then, including the Costco, was in those traffic counts. For the developments that are proposed but not yet constructed, so Whole Foods, the residential development in Evergreen, the second phase of the Gateway development, we added the traffic into our background volumes from those developments. So that got us to a baseline traffic condition. Then we calculated the traffic that would be generated by this development using industry standard ITE rates. And as I presented during the zone change process, this development is a very minimal traffic generator. During the peak hours, we generate about 20 trips in the morning, afternoon, and Saturday peak period. So not a noticeable increase in traffic when you add it to what's already out there on the road network. We had no deteriorations in level of service at any intersection as a result of the increase of that traffic.
Thank you very much. I believe everything you said. It's just that I don't know how we can be so disconnected with the people living it every day. So that's where my, issues are. But I appreciate you getting up and telling us. Thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yeah, while we're on that thought, I did a little test in my own car last week, and if you're on the east end of town, say over by Starbucks over on Deming Street, and you're get a cup of coffee, it's all right, I have to go to Costco. You put it in Google on your phone and map it out, and it tells you the best way to go there is take a left and go up the hill and come down Deming, and you go to Costco. All right, so I watch cars from Manchester cut through that way and go up the hill, down the hill, over to Costco in that area. And I'm in that area usually about 5:45 in the morning, one of the first people to go to the station. I come down typically on 74 and over to Costco and fuel up when I'm gone. And surprised at the number of cars that come out of Deming Street, right at that junction, right by, there's some bank on the corner there. And it seems to me that what I'm seeing today is even different from 6 months ago. Once these businesses come to town, they get established, people start to get a pattern, even myself. I'm at Costco at 6:05 in the morning, something I didn't do a year ago. Now, getting fuels, I work all over Connecticut, but these traffic studies are all good, but habits form quickly and things change rapidly, I think, in any community. And I'm seeing this road as being quite the cut through. And like Avery Street up my way, parts of it were improved, parts of it were not. That was basically a paved farm road 40 years ago as I worked on top of the hill. So when you cut through there, you see the old parts and new parts and so on. It's not the best through road for traffic. It clearly isn't without improvements. And I'm just thinking today, that road handles more than it should, and we're just adding fuel to the fire, so to speak, but just my opinion. But a lot's been said up here. I agree with most of it, but that's my one comment. But,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
I think we, and it's acknowledged, there's several hundred cars on that road in the peak hour. And that's in the traffic study. That was the basis for our analysis. But I think, I go back to the fact that it's the incremental increase. And the majority of this traffic is not going to turn out of the site and go up Deming Road. They're going to go to Buckland Road. That is where you have 2,500 vehicles in the peak hour. That's where most people are traveling north and south. They're accessing I-84 from there. So our study, based on existing traffic distributions at that intersection, we have 85% of the traffic going to that signal, which is a very reasonable assumption based on the volumes that are out there today. So the other 15%, yes, they would go up Deming. Maybe they're going to cut over towards Vernon. But just to equate that, when you're dealing with 20 trips, 15% of 20 trips is 3 cars in the peak hour. That's 1 car every 20 minutes. So it's not something that someone would even notice on that road. We're dealing with, the volumes of traffic we're dealing with here are extremely small.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Quarishi.
So I share the similar sentiments as Commissioner Bernstein and Commissioner Foley. And I've talked about the schools and the number of kids that are in schools before, and I saw the numbers that were presented. And I still think that based on what we see in the schools and what the projections are, there's a disconnect there. That may be a personal opinion, but that's not what I see in the schools. We have new schools with already extensions on them. And so that would be a concern for me. And I hear the traffic studies. I live on a connector street, and I know the patterns change different times of the year. And I do get a lot of cross traffic, and people do drive fast. So speeding and not stopping at stop signs is a pretty bad pattern throughout the town, and I can understand what Deming Street looks like. I've seen it, and I have noticed an increase in pattern at different times of the day, because I've been down there to Costco and back, and taking that left turn has gotten harder and harder out of Costco to our Stop and Shop. So what we're noticing is already there, and so the traffic is just going to keep increasing, and depending on the time of the year, it's going to be different too. So sharing those concerns, just wanted to get it out on the record as well. Schools, increase in traffic, safety concerns. When you have streets where people park cars out on the street and there's just traffic driving through, they don't know who's gonna be out in the street when there's not enough lights as well. So safety concerns are there as well for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I had mentioned the maintenance and the conservation area. And Ben, I believe you had spoken about cutting in the main area of the project would be done weekly.
Yes.
And you were open to discussion about the conservation area. My thoughts are the main area weekly, yes. The very front of the project and probably 4 feet past the fence should be done weekly. And the rest of it, maybe bi-weekly is fine. On the southeast border of the project, where the fence is on the right side of that drawing, there's like 4 existing trees in that, close to that fence line. I don't see them circled as staying. If project is approved, I would like to see as least disruption to the neighborhood as possible.
Understood.
And those trees be preserved. And, I mean, I don't want somebody going in with a chainsaw and cutting down a perfectly good tree just because it's not on the plans.
Okay.
Okay. And those trees look like they're close to the fence. If the fence was moved 4 feet so that those trees could stay, I think that should be an option. I'm just going to go in line with my questions. What would be your procedure when you have a large snow event, say 6 inches to a foot of snow? I mean, I don't believe, and Commissioner Foley could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that your storage areas would be enough for a 1 foot event. Could you tell me what any future residents of the facility would expect for snow removal in that instance?
Well, I'll ask Mark to come up here again. I would think that using the entirety of that central green would allow us to manage a 12-inch snow event. I mean, now we've essentially unlocked the, with vehicle relocation, the entirety of that island with there being no sidewalks, as well as the relocation of the sidewalks on the front shoulders. But I don't know if you have anything to add, Mark.
No, just we would put in the contract that if they have to haul the snow out.
If you could speak up.
I'm sorry. We would put into the snow removal and landscape contract a provision for hauling snow out.
Okay. Pardon me? You would have to. Yeah. Okay. I'm expecting, and I believe I've mentioned this before, that if approved, or if this project's approved, no trees on any existing berry patch property will be disturbed, especially on the northeast side of the project?
Yes, understood.
Okay. How is recycling handled? I know you have the 2 dumpsters for refuse, but can you just touch on how recycling is collected?
Yes, there's a separate container, similar size, maybe a 6-yard, that would be emptied.
Would it be in the dumpster area?
Yes.
Okay. Wow, I'm having trouble reading my writing here. Okay. Michelle, was there a requirement for community room space in the regulations?
No, there's not.
Okay. Ben, you spoke of preventive maintenance, and that was something we asked you to come back with so that we would have a better feeling, and I do appreciate that. But I'm also wondering about what the plan is when trees are cut down and stumps are left. I believe we might have touched on that, or you might have touched on that previously, but what's the plan in those cases?
The plan would be to replace the trees.
In any certain time frame, or, I mean,
If
in the
they're-
next growing season, or?
We would agree to that, if you wanted to make that a condition to approve.
Okay, well, I'm also wondering about other properties that Metro owns, services in South Windsor.
We're required to adhere to the approved site plan, which shows the landscaping. So yes, we would look to replant any trees that were removed at the reasonable planting season time.
Okay.
So within one growing season is reasonable.
So if people had in other complexes had issues, they could also call up the town and say, hey, our planting schedule isn't adequate anymore. It's been changed.
Yes.
Okay. Steve touched on the carpet replacing. That I still have some concerns about that, because I'm getting up there in age also. I'm not as advanced as some others, but, and no bang on that, but it's my considerations too, you know? Let me go on the other side of this page. The parking issues, I understand that some of your residents won't be driving, and that's something that we're going to have to experience for it to really be a problem. Safety and health, as was mentioned, the traffic studies were reviewed by town staff, including police and fire. I don't recall any major red flags being brought forward regarding that. And I do understand that what the residents are seeing is a lot of increased traffic from what hadn't been there 10, 15 years ago. And yeah, that's a big concern, but if the traffic ratios still meet what the logs or the standard is for the streets, it's hard to move towards denying something because of an increase in traffic versus being overly saturated, if I could use that term. Vicki, I see your hand, and I'll get back to you in a little while. Okay. And as far as a lot of the other issues, I appreciate what Steve mentioned about the kids, and the residents also mentioning about the play area in the center of the parking lot, basically. That's a little bit concerning, and I think the solution that was mentioned is a move in the right direction. I do want to thank the residents for all their input in attending these public hearings, and we are listening, there's a lot of issues that were voiced, as Steve said, that aren't planning and zoning issues, but they are quality of life issues. And I'll just go back to that moving furniture. That's got to be resolved. You know, it's not something that's going to carry my decision on this application, but you got to look at the life of carpets, smoke alarms. I mean, a lot of the smoke alarms that are in these buildings now, they're mandated and they're a 10-year smoke alarm. And they should be replaced in 10 years. And if I asked you, have all the smoke alarms been replaced, CO detectors in your complexes, I would expect to hear you say, yeah, we have a 10-year plan for that and they're taken care of. Well, there should also be 10-year plans for carpet replacement, because the life of a carpet, especially, you know, if somebody has a walker or something else and it's more friction for the carpet, there should be standards there. They aren't planning and zoning standards, but quality of life standards. And I hope that Metro addresses issues like that, because there shouldn't be 80-year-old people that are told they can't have new carpet because they can't move the furniture. That's sad. So I hope you have better answers for that in the future. I think that's, let me just look at my, actually, Steve had a question. I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to review what else I have here.
So, Vicki Margio, can I ask you one thing?
My question?
Yes. I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, you mentioned that I talked about putting a house on that conservation lot.
Yes, you did.
I think you may misunderstand. I actually kind of think it's a good idea.
Oh, I would love a house on that conservation lot.
So here's my question. You're the only person, I believe, that's suggested that.
No, I'm not the only person who has suggested that. I think there's people here who are afraid to come talk, and we didn't know that we were going to be requested to have a position on that lot at this meeting. But I think.
So let me ask Michelle, without you sitting down, is it possible to change that into a housing lot without causing a problem with all of this?
I really think you might want to ask the applicant whether that's their desire to do it or not, because I don't think that's what their plans are to do it. From a zoning perspective, I think I put in my report last time that the open space that's required, the use of that that lot is what helps meet that requirement. The commission would have to grant a waiver if that were not available. But again, I think that really conversation may want to be had with the applicant whether or not that's in their plans at all to do that. It would have to be re-subdivided out again. It's not subdivided any longer. So there are some steps that would have to be taken to make it a residential lot.
And I don't know if I want to hold up this particular thing, but that could be coming in as a change somewhere down the road, maybe? I don't know. I mean, I personally, I think a person who buys a house there after this development is built, maybe you misunderstood what I was saying, they would at least know they're moving next to an apartment, okay? All right, so that to me is a good thing, okay, for them. And personally, I would move into a house next to an apartment. That's me, okay. On the other hand, the open space can be handled several different ways, one of which is to give money to the open space fund, right? There are different ways to handle.
Again, you'd have to meet the regulations you have in place. It would be a waiver provision that you would do, not requiring the percentage that the regulation requires.
Yeah, okay. and I don't think anyone is prepared to answer on behalf of the applicant at this point, or I don't know what your feelings are.
So as Michelle said, if the commission's willing to grant the waiver and prefers that it be converted to a single-family residence, then it's, you know, personally, I like it as a conservation lot to provide, you know, provides additional green space and provides an area that's a buffer. But, you know, we can, I'm quite certain that it would be very marketable as a building lot. So provided that we are able to meet the provisions in the regulations by way of waiver of that open space requirement, then.
So I guess I'll leave it up to other commissioners if they have any thoughts on that subject.
The one thing too that you'd have to remember when you put your line back in, you're gonna have another buffer requirement on the other side of the line from a zoning perspective. So there will be some, you know, side yard implications and things like that. As
It
to,
looks like we've got plenty of space though.
you'd move it over, yeah.
Say that again?
You probably want to look where the line comes in, because again, you'd have to have it on the easterly side as well. But it's something that could be looked at.
Well, I mean, I have a comment on, I don't think we have to build on every square inch and every acre in this town. If something says conservation, I think it's conservation, and that's, okay?
Okay. Did any other commissioners have any other questions, concerns? Vicki, did you say everything you wanted to say?
No, I did not.
Could you please come up, because I did tell you that I would get back to you.
Right. So as part of the traffic study, one of the things that I've previously brought up that has not been addressed is that this supportive housing group of people are going to require 2 light times to get across the street and over to the bus stop. And the queuing right now on Deming and Buckland to make any of the turns is already unacceptable. The lines that are printed on the road are full in every direction, not every direction every time, but in every direction I have encountered the queuing to be full, taking a left up the hill on, taking the people who are taking a left coming from like Target to turn down to get to Costco. The lanes are full on Deming on both sides, either going up the hill, a lot of people leaving Costco, and going down the hill. People are starting to drive in the wrong lane to go straight at the intersection at Deming and Buckland because they don't want to wait for anything else. It's getting crazy. And no one has addressed that the additional queuing of waiting 2 light sequences for people to walk and that impact on traffic. Thank you.
So just, Vicki, if you could stay at the podium. So I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Like somebody who's at the residences and they're crossing Buckland over towards the new bank and then getting to the bus stop, they have to cross Deming to get to the bus stop. Okay?
Right.
Okay.
And it's 2 light sequences because you can't make it in one light sequence. It's too far across. Buckland has now so many lanes. You can't make it in one light. So if you're this is the residence, you have to go across this way and then across that way or over to the M&T Bank and there. But 50% of the time, this crosswalk thing doesn't work. So you use these 2. And so to do that, the impact on the queuing traffic for this left turn lane up Deming and for this turn over here backs up onto Deming. And the Deming-Buckland intersection, Mr. Cow told you at the meeting when we all froze in the community center, is the single largest accident site in South Windsor.
And I've been to that intersection dozens of times, and I went there with the thought that I'm going to see the queuing back up. And unfortunately, and my bank is M&T. I'm there at least once a week. Every time I watched, I made it through one signal. I didn't have to go to another. And it could have just been the time that I went, and it wasn't on like the prime time. But I thought that I had been there all times a day. So
I've seen the queuing every single way already be full for each one of the turns. And it becomes very unsafe because the longer the queuing is for the people coming from Target that are turning a left onto Deming to get to Costco, the people who are trying to take a left to go up Deming, that queuing lane blocks your vision and you can't see the coming traffic on Deming. And so either you're trying to see around the cars or between the cars or look at what's further back that you might possibly see, or it's risky. And that's one of the reasons why there's so many accidents there, is that that queuing lane is impacting the ability to safely make turns. And so the more impact we have to that queuing, the worse the safety for every single resident of town is.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, anything else you want to bring up? Hearing and seeing none. Staff, is there?
No, we're all set, thank you.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything else or closing statements?
Yes, thank you. Tim Hollister for the record. Just a couple of closing remarks, I guess. First, you can take this for what it's worth, but I have represented Metro on all of its South Windsor developments, all of its Avon, Farmington, Berlin developments. I've never, ever heard anybody complain about their maintenance program, ever, until we got to this hearing. And so I just... Yes, sir.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I just said I have never heard anyone over 30 years complain about Metro's maintenance of their exterior or interior or anything else until this hearing. So it just makes me wonder where this criticism is coming from. Second, I hope you all appreciate that much of what was said tonight in the way of criticism is anonymous and amorphous, and it's nothing we can respond to. The lady who was sitting here who left doesn't live at Berry Patch and was a representative of unknown and unnamed people. So there's no way we can respond to that about dirty dryers and dirty microwaves. I mean, even Mr. Tardif, who was in charge of that stuff, as he said, can't respond to that because he doesn't know any of the details. So it's sort of unfair to be confronted with that. Don't mean to put him on the spot. I'd be very respectful of his criticism, but Mr. McCabe said there's going to be 200 people living here in one-bedroom and two-bedroom apartments with 15 apartments for Mark residents. 200 people, that's 4 people per unit. So this is the kind of criticism that being thrown.
Excuse me.
Sir, I was respectful during your...
Excuse me. The public comments ended already.
Okay. Regarding what you're doing here tonight, I would remind you this is a special permit and site plan application. You are not revisiting the zone change. You may wish the zone change had not been approved, but the zone change is in effect. This is a permitted use, and you can't go back and try to redo that in this application. That's why I said there's a lot of overlap between your special permit and zone change criteria. But at this point, I respectfully believe that the commission cannot say, is this appropriate for the zone, because that has already been decided. Now, that leads to a very important thing. If there are concerns about maintenance, either it's building maintenance or lawn maintenance, at this stage of the game, the way to address that is to impose a condition of approval, not to deny because you don't believe that Metro is not cutting the lawn sufficiently. That's the obligation that you have as a commission at this stage. And the last thing I want to say is, and this is a response to several of the speakers, zoning is not a popularity contest. If a property owner has a right to an approval, that property, and believe me, I have seen this many times in my career, a property owner is entitled to an approval, and that property owner may stand against an entire town who want that person and their proposal to go down in flames. But that person has a right, that property owner has a right, and I just ask you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foley.
Well, we understand that this is not about zoning, that ship has sailed. I don't want my fellow commissioners to get clouded with berry patch, okay? It's about the special exception criteria. And my belief is that they have not fulfilled, okay? They're not.
On microphone, just
That
a
they
little
are-
closer, tilt it down or
Whatever. I do not believe, okay, that they are good, this is a good fit. We are 100% for Mark. We know we need affordable housing. You got your zone change, but this isn't the application for this spot. So that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other input, commissioners? Okay, with that being said, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 9:57 PM, and we'll move into our other business. Yes, I'd say so. Would you like to make a motion? Okay, then we're going to go with what we have right now. I'll call the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning for November 28, 2023 to order. Our first item of business is public participation. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Now would be the time. Hearing and seeing none. We have minutes from 11/14/23. I was not here for that meeting, so I'll look to see what the commission would like to do on that. Microphone. I know you were seated for that meeting.
I am seated for this part?
For that meeting.
Yes, I'm suggesting or making a motion that we accept by consensus.
4, 6, 7, okay. But that should come from a seated commissioner for that.
Move we approve by consensus.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Yeah, aye. Those opposed? Okay, I'm abstaining because I wasn't here, so that's a 6-0 vote. Okay, we're almost at 10 PM. Our new business. We have our annual organizational meeting. I'll open the floor to nominations.
I'd like to nominate Bart Pasakonis for Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, are there any other nominations?
I'll second that one.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Declare for president closed. How about for vice chairman?
I'd like to nominate Kevin Foley for vice chair.
Any other nominations?
I'll second that.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Stephanie Dexter for secretary.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair or secretary? Okay, then we'll move nominations are closed and we'll cast one ballot for our officers. Okay, we are at 10 o'clock. Unless there's an extension, by our rules, our meeting is completed for the evening. Hearing,
I move that we extend the meeting for 10 minutes in order to finish the organization meeting.
Second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we have our review of bylaws. Did anybody have any bylaws that?
I do.
Oh, I got him first.
Okay.
Commissioner Cavagnero.
Thank you. So this is going to be the third year I will be making these recommendations, but I do believe minutes should still be moved all the way up in between Pledge of Allegiance and public hearing. And secondly, last year we were able to extend the end of meeting, I think it was from 9 or 9:30 up to 10 o'clock. I'd be in favor of making that 10:30 going forward for the next year. That's sort of where I stand on it. I'm still going to propose it. I just want to see what the commission thinks of that. But those are the two recommendations that I've been proposing for the past couple of years, and I'd kind of like to see.
Okay, we'll hear all the recommendations and then we'll talk about them. Commissioner Wagner?
Okay, so
Microphone?
on Article 8, Section 3, which is toward the bottom of page 2, we say that elected members of the commission shall be declared elected and shall serve for 1 year. But we have on Section 1, we have a biennial organization meeting, so the Section 3 should change to 2 years.
I thought we had done that in our last approval. Could those be old
These
minutes?
are the ones that were handed out.
Microphone, please.
Page 2, near the bottom, Section 3.
You do have the most current ones in front of you, so we will propose to change that to 2.
Okay.
And I have just one typographical on page 4, Article 14, Section 1. It should be 2 sentences. It should put a period after verbatim records, and then say meetings shall be recorded, because the minutes aren't recorded, it's the meetings that are recorded. So that's it for me.
Okay. Are there any other proposed changes to the bylaws? Okay, well, let's discuss what Alan had said. Is there anyone in favor of going past 10 o'clock for a normal meeting?
My only comment on that is, I think we all do the right thing at the right moment when we know something's coming to an end, and we say, yeah, we'll give it 10, we'll give it 15. We're going beyond 10 a lot of the times, but to make it official in our bylaws, I think it's tough for working folks who get up early.
Okay.
Speaking for myself, I get up at 4 a.m. sometimes to go to work, sometimes 5, and my answer would be no. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Your other one, Alan?
Yes, and tonight would be a good example of it. It took us 3 hours to get through the public hearing. Minutes, like I've been saying, they take anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to either do by consensus or do a 6-to-1 vote. Really, it's just for the transparency aspect of the commission, so the minutes are on the website just in case the minutes get pushed back and the meeting ends before we even have a chance to get to the minutes. I don't see a problem at all with having it between Pledge of Allegiance and public hearing, so.
Oh, it's me again, sorry.
Commissioner Dexter?
No, but the last time we went through bylaws, we did move the minutes up. I don't care if we move them up even more, but, we did move them up from way down the agenda, so let's go for that. Let's just.
Yeah, and I will add on to
Excuse
that.
me,
that-
if I could comment.
Okay.
I think the problem is the minutes are part of the regular meeting. The public hearing is a separate announced and published event, so I think it maybe doesn't work. I wouldn't have a problem with doing it, but I don't think it works legally.
I think, yeah, I can agree with your comments, Steve. I think putting it up right after you call your regular meeting to order, if you wanted to move it up in front of public participation, but it's kind of hard with a public hearing to say you're going to put up even further because you do publish a 7 o'clock start time for your public hearings.
I concur with that.
But I would go in front of the public comment.
So,
Compromising with Alan.
how are you compromising? Could you repeat that?
Move it up one in the agenda.
Oh, okay. I'm fine with that, moving it up in front of public comment, but keeping it in the regular meeting. Okay, and I'm in agreement with the comments that Steve, Alan, that was all you had for comments, right? Okay. I'm in agreement with the comments that Steve had. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about those. Do you want to repeat them, Steve?
One was correcting the 1 year to 2 year, and the other was changing, putting a sentence to verbatim minutes and saying minutes shall be recorded.
Yeah, the subject of the sentence was different.
Okay. Is everybody in agreement with those? Okay. Then we'll change those. Our next part of our organizational meeting is our schedule.
Chair, would you like me to provide you a draft of the changes, or are you just going to change them so you can vote on them at the next meeting?
Yeah, please provide them and we'll vote at the next meeting. As far as the schedule, did anybody have any issues with the schedule that's been provided? Any concerns, questions? Okay. So that's already been provided to us. We'll have a consensus of agreement for that? Okay. And that, I believe, completes our organizational meeting. So let me just, oh my God, here we go. Okay. We've still got the Berry Patch 2 application 23-44P. It's nothing we're going to get done, I don't think, in 2 minutes. So I think we're best putting those 2 items on our next agenda. That would be for December?
Yes, December 12th.
Okay. We could do bonds real quick. We had one item added, officially received. The other was bonds. Would someone like to move on these bonds that we have? Commissioner Cavagnero?
Yep. Move to approve IWA/CC bonds. There are 3 of them. 20-48P Berry Equipment ENS, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, balance 0. 20-48P Berry Equipment Stormwater, amount 10,000, reduction 10,000, balance 0. And finally, 20-48P Berry Equipment Wetland Plantings, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I believe we're at our 10:10. Would you like to do a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you.